would be the point we would have to extend if we, yeah. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding that motion? Majority? 2/3? Okay. Is there any further amendments to be made? Okay, everyone, we will be voting on the approving the amended agenda. All those in favor of approving the amended agenda, please raise your placard.
We need to vote to add it to the agenda and vote to approve the agenda.
Yeah, so right now you're voting to add that motion to the agenda. If you want the specific wording I'm going to read the specific wording of the motion just for everyone's interest. So what you're voting on is to add a motion moved by Nico Brassett-Duke and seconded by Rhea Puri, and it reads that the AMS Assembly release the results of the e-vote regarding Assembly's decision for the AMS to endorse the undergraduate open letter petition, more specifically, who voted for, against, and abstained. So what you're going to vote on is whether you think this motion should be added to the agenda. Yeah, any questions on that?
Okay, so we will go back. All those in favor, please raise your placard. Okay, all those against? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We will now be going into approving the agenda. Oh, are there any other amendments? Seeing there are no other amendments, please raise your placard in favor of approving the amended agenda. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll now be moving into the executive reports. We'll begin with President Rocky. Can I? Oh.
Hello. Well, hello, everyone. I know we just saw each other so recently. We'll see each other next week, so lots of assembly this week. I'm sure everybody's excited about that. But good to see all the assembly members again. To everybody who's not an assembly member, thank you for being here. Thanks to Media Center as well for pulling this together on such late notice, so shout out to Media Center. I hope you're all doing well. I know these aren't easy times to be a student on campus for a variety of reasons, and I'm sure we're going to talk about some of those today. But it's times like these I'm reminded of the difficulty of representing 20,000 undergraduate students with a diverse set of needs, experiences, and advocacy needs from the AMS. While I'm proud of the work that the AMS has done so far, we come before you today to seek further guidance. I'll outline to you briefly what I've been working on in the past couple of weeks and how we got here today. So firstly, I've really been focusing, as this strike progressed, I've been focusing a lot on working to liaise information between the university and student leaders, most of the FACSOC presidents. They've been really great getting concerns that their constituencies have raised to them. I have a lot of info that I've gotten directly from the university, and it's been really helpful to understand and really share the rules with them to ensure that we're all following fair game on campus. That's mainly what I've been working on. I've been working hard to do so. As the strike evolved, it was clear our members needed more support. I know Wednesday last week, there was a pretty distressing communication where the conversation between credit received and grade received, which albeit it's quite confusing for all of us, and it really stirred the pot. I think it's really upsetting. It's very scary for a lot of students on campus right now, and I want to recognize that. I became aware of a petition that was going around that a lot of undergrads had signed on to, and I became aware of that on Wednesday. Senate was the next day, and this was a big deal to my membership, I could tell. So before speaking on behalf of all 20,000 members, I decided to put an e-vote through Assembly, where I called to see if we supported the petition in whole. Assembly can only endorse things in whole, which is important to note. And I also called to put a motion in to support me calling this Assembly here today. So while the endorsement of the petition didn't go through, as you can see, we're all here today to discuss what's going on campus and help to bring our society to have more direction with dealing with this. I'll reaffirm that just because the petition passed doesn't mean we don't support much of its contents. I know I've already spoken much about the grade received and credit received is quite confusing, and it's scary to apply a blanket solution across 20,000 students, as we never want to advocate for something that can go back on our members. I'm looking forward to the rest of this assembly, where we can discuss each point of the petition and where we stand on that. And we can take into stances in assembly accordingly, as our brilliant secretary, Sylvie, has thought to make sure we can add in motions later. I'll be transparent that it's a difficult spot for the AMS to be in. Things happen on a faculty level that have different rules for each faculty, and as we sit centrally, all we can really do is try to help everybody where we can. The point of this assembly is so that we can be left as a team with actionable items to advocate to the university on that can tangibly improve and advocate for all of our members. I know there's already a motion tabled later today that I came about talking to Student Senate Caucus Chair Balog, advocating for students who may be on academic probation or have a scholarship, who may be affected by this. And this is just one example of something that we can do as an AMS to support all students on campus, regardless of what faculty they're in. I look forward to continuing to work with my faculty society leaders to continue to advocate for all of their respective memberships. And I look forward to bringing whatever we discuss today to advocate vigorously to the senior leadership team at this university. So thanks again for everybody for being here, and I do hope you take care over these next couple weeks.
Next, we will be going to Vice President Chaudhary. He is not here today, so proxy for him will speak.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I will be proxying as Ian, and I'm just super excited to be here. And yeah, thanks, Emma. I mean, Speaker Capstick.
Okay, moving on to Vice President Asunde.
Is this white? Oh my God.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening. Congratulations on ending the semester and subsequently the year in terms of classes. Over the last couple of weeks, we've continued to work with the university very closely. And as Owen mentioned, we've also continued to work with our faculty societies very closely as well. We had some communication last week with our meetings, and so the exec team and myself have monthly meetings with the university where we bring issues that students bring to our attention to them. The strike was one of the conversations that we talked about, and talking about how this affects our students and what some of the plans are. I have a message from the Division of Student Affairs with some resources available for students. They still have their SAS one-on-one appointments available. Student Wellness Supports is also aware if students are suffering from higher anxiety levels than usual as well. They have some key things happening with study breaks and work with the faith and spiritual life. She's also highlighted a bunch of resources which the AMS and the commissions will be sharing on our Instagrams, just to ensure that students are supported at this time as well. There's also a couple resources with the Banrai Center. There's also resources with QSAS and the Adaptive Technology Office. We have a lot going on as well within the AMS. We strongly encourage everyone to visit the Peer Support Center and also utilize the available resources that come through our health insurance, our health and dental plan. I'd also like to highlight the fact that we did send out an invite to the senior admin team on Friday. We recognize that it is short minute, and we also called this assembly with short notice as well. Unfortunately, none of them were able to be here from the Provost's office or the Division of Student Affairs, but they did mention that if they had gotten a little bit more time, that would have been something that they were willing to consider. Again, like over the last couple of weeks, we understand that students are having a rough time, and if for any reason they need any supports over the last month of our terms, because starting tomorrow we are counting down in terms of how many days we have left, but we're more than happy to take whatever concerns students might have forward. And to wrap this up, there was also an announcement that went out this morning. I don't know how many students have seen it, but it does talk about some of the grading guidelines, which will be distributed to all instructors and staff at some point. And students have been encouraged, if they have any additional questions, to reach out to the undergraduate chair or head of, or their associate dean, Jen Stevenson. And that was from the Dean of Arts side. So thank you very much.
We will actually be moving on to the guest speaker portion now. There's no slide on it, so we will now introduce PSAC 901 to come up and speak.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, maybe keeping a bit distance is better like this. Yeah. My name is Canan Shahin. I am a PhD student in the Department of Politics. And we appreciate the opportunity, like that you have given us to kind of present our cause, why we have been on strike, and share information basically with you about the impact of the strike on the delivery of course and your education. You must have seen us in the corner because we have been holding the picket line for 4 weeks now. Today is the 16th day. From 8 a.m. in the morning to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, we are at the intersection of University and Union, and we always appreciate the support of undergraduates and their visit to the picket line. So our strike started, as you know, on the March 10th, basically the following day, with the demands, fair wages. We wanted a labor funding ratio because wage raise by itself does not solve our problem. We want no funding clawbacks that if we get a wage raise. We also fight for childcare support. No member of ours are enrolled in the childcare support plan of this university. We want that exists in other bargaining units. We want for compensation for Bill 124 that capped the wage rise at 1% from 2019 to 2024, which was in place, and it was then deemed unconstitutional, which is not in place, and a lot of bargaining units bargained for compensation recovery caused by the Bill 124. So these are some of the demands that we have, and that's why we are on strike, because university's proposal did not address core issues that we are having. And since then, we have reached out to the university administration, and my colleague will talk about it very briefly. But here I want to emphasize, we know how your courses have been impacted. From day one, we have been also gathering information from undergraduate students from strike impact form, basically. And through the reports that we have been provided, we know that 180 unique courses were reported as being disrupted. 44.8% of submissions mentioned labs and tutorials being cancelled. We know 67.8% of the responses that we received says that they were missing grades, and 55% specifically mentioned missing feedback. And 32% of students reported increased stress, and 45% of responses said quality of the education they are receiving have been reduced. And 15.8% specifically said that they felt they are not getting what they paid for. Overall, according to numbers that we gathered, 36,000 individual class enrollments have been impacted, and this roughly corresponds to over $39 million worth of tuition. So with these numbers, we think you definitely deserve fair grading. You definitely deserve closing of the semester with with basically objectives being achieved on your end with the quality of education and fair assessment. That's very important. In York University, through 2 strike waves in 2018 and 2024, undergraduates were given the option to drop the courses and use the tuition money they paid as a tuition credit option that could be allowing them to take another course with that tuition credit in the following academic year. It was available in other universities, whereas this university chose to university administration from the Senate meeting, we understand, credit standing grade or credit received grade to grade deferred option. And we know credit received mark might create issues for those who would like to go on their education in law schools, medical schools, or other graduate studies. So it is not preferable. Also, it is not left to the initiative of the faculty members or instructors. So dean's decisions in the faculties to assign CR, credit received grade, will override the decisions of the faculty members, which seems to all of us anti-democratic at the same time. So pretending that the courses have been delivered, although even imagine the teaching fellows courses who teach the entire course and they have not been taught for 1 month now. So giving students credit received and putting them at a disadvantage for their future studies and presenting it as a solution for us is not a fair practice. So the real solution, we believe, we renegotiate, keep negotiating the contract and get a fair contract so that we can go back and help a fair assessment and fair grading. You are the major source of income for this university, unfortunately, with the underfunding and everything from provincial governments. And I think you are entitled to get the quality of education that you were promised to. And you know that TAs and TAs particularly are the interface between the lecturers and the delivery of the education. So without that, without our assistance, you cannot, receive the same education, and you haven't. So every kind of attempt on your end to defend your rights to better education is important. We are very invested pedagogically, the teaching, and for most of us, it is the passion, it is the reason why we are in academia. That's why we like teaching, we love our undergraduate students, and we find it problematic to solve the issue comes out of the strike by basically from a top-down grading system that might put students at a disadvantage without getting their ideas or objections. So your voice matters a lot, like ours. And I think our contract is intimately tied to your grades. So if we get a fair contract, I think grading system that you're having will be fairer, the assessment will be fairer. And thanks a lot for the time that you have given to us. And I will just pass it to my colleague, Jack, just to talk about the misinformation that we think that exists about the communication between our union and the university administration. And sometimes it confuses people. It's very important for you to hear it from us, actually, I feel. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jack. I'm a PhD student here at Queen's University. I also did my undergrad here. I'll be brief and I'll be straight to the point here. We've been negotiating with the university since November. Okay? We've been at this for a very, very, very long time now. And still, the employer, the university, delays and stalls and extends at our expense and also at your expense. And now, with this recent judgment about credits over grade deferrals, the university is just phoning it in for the rest of the semester. At whose expense? At your expense. at your expense. Time and time again, we have reached out to the university. We've said, listen, we want to negotiate. And the university says, well, you guys didn't go through the right channels. And then we post, actually, no, we did go through the right channels. We did involve the negotiators, as the university was claiming that we had not. And the university says, okay, well, in any case, it doesn't matter, because the onus is upon the union, Peace Act 901, to come to the table with some kind of proposal, with some kind of counteroffer. But we already had. And again, and again and again and again, we go back and forth, and again, the university delays and extends, and it's at your expense. We need to stop the madness. We want this to end. We don't want this to keep going. We know you want this to end. You don't want this to keep going, right? So we're all on the same page here in terms of we need to work toward the end of the strike. And I think reaching that, we have to do that together. We have to do that together. It's not simply just grads and the undergrads being separate in this fight. I think we need to band together, and we need to put the pressure on the university to actually come to the table on this so that we stop having this semester, or rather the lack thereof, coming at all of our expenses. So we cannot stop this without you, and we simply ask for your support in this matter. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Does anyone have any questions? Director Boychuk-Hale? Are you open to answering questions?
Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm also a grad student. My question is, because I didn't know if you're going to stay for all of Assembly today, so I think it's maybe important to ask this. What is something that Assembly could do tonight that would show support for 901 members?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, the first thing I think would be to speak out in support of what the undergraduates are already organizing. The AMS is ultimately the representing body of the undergraduates. They ultimately represent the will of the undergraduates. What is the will of the undergraduates, as we've seen? Well, I think it's expressed in the petition. So some kind of statement on that, I think, would be very, 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 very valuable. If the AMS wants to release their own statement that is separate from this, sure, right? That would be great. Pointing undergraduates to resources for, like, for example, fair education forums, for submitting complaints, for submitting reports about what is happening in classrooms, right? We've received over 200 reports now from various undergraduates. That's how we've compiled these statistics about how much, tuition in terms of, the dollar value of education that's been impacted, right? And we've received some pretty wild reports: canceled clinicals, physics labs involving lasers that are now completely unsupervised. Like, we've heard all kinds of wild things. So, pointing undergraduates to resources like that so that they can actually engage, they can report on this. And I mean, ultimately, I think it needs to be directed at the university. Asking undergraduates, listen, if you want this to come to an end, you need to compel the administration. You need to talk to them. And you need to be loud, and you need to be together in that. So, I don't know. I think these are some great starting points.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Lucas Bela, Senate Caucus Chair. Can I just clarifying question? What is your role within 901?
I'm just a rank and file member.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you guys have any members of your bargaining team here?
No,
Okay.
no, not at present.
Okay, all good. Okay, I'll try to ask this a little open because I know as soon as we start talking about the bargaining process, we get into weird rules set by Ontario government about what's confidential and what's not and all that. So I do my best to try to check in on your Instagram every so often. By the way, I would love if you guys had more stuff on your website because I can never scroll in on those posts.
Noted.
Yeah, so Wednesday and Thursday, that was a mess. You guys had the emails, the back and forth with the different person the Wednesday night. The provost, he looked shocked. I'm imagining he must have had like the statement prepared on Wednesday and then went, oh yeah, maybe I should have checked in with this guy before bringing that to Senate. But I saw that there was a Word doc attached in one of those emails saying this is our response as of 2 p.m. March 26th or something. Do you guys know kind of what that response is? Because my understanding of labor negotiations is now that we've got the negotiator brought in, right? Like it kind of comes to back and forth of like you guys need to go through every single article of what the university proposed on March 9th. Is that what that one? Is that what the March 23rd Word document is, or is that March 23rd Word document the like closer to the offer that PSAC proposed end of February? Like right? It's a weird process. It's supposed to be confidential, but now we're kind of out in the open because everybody's a little confused with what's going on.
Yeah. It's been a little bit chaotic for sure.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the best person to ask that question to, but from my understanding, just from my understanding, I do believe that we have to, currently as it stands, the university's final offer, quote unquote, is the March 9th offer, right? And from my understanding, there was a counter proposal that was tabled that I believe addresses some of these things. Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, just very quickly, that it is not the proposal that we had been negotiating from our end. Now we sent to the employer a counter proposal to their March 9 proposal, and we CC'd the conciliator, the mediator in the email. So the onus is on the university bargaining team now basically to respond to that. That's why we have done our due diligence by both CCing the correct channels. We always use the correct communication channels, as well as we actually submitted a counter proposal. So now the university should show willingness to come back to table rather than portraying, I think, our union and bargaining team as if we have not been using the communication channels or not. It has never been the case, in our case, right? So that is important. And it is in their capacity now to come back to table, negotiate with our bargaining team, and finalize a contract so that we can help wrapping up the semester, like prorating, whatever we can do it, like other universities have done. It is possible to do that. Every day we are losing actually on strike is I think, as an impact on the tuitions that you're paying. It is not, I think, fair or responsible, treatment of the money that you are paying for one reason. And the second, we are also spending our entire day on the picket line, despite the fact that we want to get back to work and research. So this is a disruptive period, and they can address that. They have not shown willingness, unfortunately.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that, in your opinion, March 9th to, what was Wednesday, March 25th, university was kind of saying, hey, ball's in your court. We're like, we disagree. But then March 29th, you're kind of like, okay, fine, we'll step up, be the bigger person, table this document. And now the ball is formally in the university's court. And again, don't comment if it's confidential, but has the provincial conciliator said, yes, the ball is in the university's court now?
Yes, we can send another email. We can send another email. We can send another email. I mean, we can just set the ball, campus sent to their ball. They could have come back to table even before the date we are talking about. They could have come back to table on March 11th, March 12th. Concordia was on strike. Their employer basically came back to table in 7 days with a contract, and they signed it. So it was possible for them, and now just because they say, you know, like we want a counter proposal from BSAC 90 and a conciliator, we are basically making it clear for the audience, like who follow the negotiations, that we have done our due diligence even by their, you know, like asks, basically, right? So yes, the ball is in their court.
Okay. Perfect.
I'll go now to Mika.
Hi, President Heller from NSS. I was just wondering, you guys were kind of like promoting the grade deferral rather than the credit. How would that impact students that need to graduate?
I think for graduation, definitely there could be, you know, like methods that can be, because CR or credit received in the university is not only used for graduation purposes. It is used as a marking policy that's like a blanket marking policy, right? So what we should be doing, I think, with the grade deferred proposal, if the university comes back to table, we will be able to basically help the grading system. And because the university does not frame the issue only as a graduation problem. They address it as a term completion, you know, like closure problem. And if the faculty members say this course has not been, like 80% of the course has not been, you know, like delivered, the learning objectives have not been achieved, I cannot give course, like credit received grade for this, that decision should not be trampled over. That's why what is the power of our labor is basically because our labor is so essential for your graduation and completion, that's why it should be respected and we should be coming back to the table, right? All the reassessment, you know, like methods in relation to the graduation, and it can be a matter of discussion, you know, like to your benefit, whereas it should not, you know, like come as a policy to close off the semester and you just assign top-down dean, you know, like instructed blanket CR grades. It should not be the case. So normally, it is the ask of the student that compels, that triggers the CR, or like what we can say, that marking policy. Whereas here, what we see, rather than a demand from the student, we see it as a policy, which is, I think, totally, you know, like top down, which is not the correct treatment of the situation. If you undergraduates want to get good education, reflect the grades reflective of their hard work, and their transcript be important for or useful for the applications that they are making, without any negative, you know, like content that might put them at disadvantage at this point.
We're only going to take one more question if anyone has one. Yes. Yes, if you're an AMS member, yes. Yeah, we'll bring it up. Sorry.
We're working on fixing this. It's in the policy.
Hi, thank you. I just have a question, just for some clarification, and then maybe just a voice of concern that I don't think has been raised in this whole situation. But to my knowledge, grad students aren't receiving pay because they're not in the position to be TAs right now, and they are only receiving pay if they pick it. And I work at the Yellow House, and we've seen an influx of international graduate students coming in for support with food insecurity, especially because they're afraid to pick it because they think that it might affect their chances to be able to stay in Canada afterwards. So I'm just wondering what supports, I guess, to your knowledge, are available, or if PSAC has done any outreach to address those concerns, or if there's alternative forms of participation for those members that could kind of address that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an entire accommodations committee that actually is dedicated to this very problem that you're describing. So we have accommodated picket duties that have been offered to many members for those who can't be on the physical picket line. That's something that we've been doing since day one. So, yeah.
And also we are running actually a kitchen. The Mutual Aid Care Commons is running a kitchen to feed the people on the picket line every day because of the food insecurity. We know we call people to the picket line, but we should also be able to feed them. It's supported what PSAC 901, and it is making food. And you're right, we had done a lot of surveys also before we go on the strike, and food insecurity is a very significant, issue among our members. We have more than 10% of our members, just as according to the report, we have each just one course of a meal a day. And you're right, international line, and they feel intimidated by that, and it shouldn't exist. Actually, they should feel more comfortable coming to the picket line, and they shouldn't, because this is their legal right, our legal right, and we try to protect our members. And we are going to have a town hall about this issue on Wednesday, actually, on the picket line. Thanks for the question. Very sensitive, and I think it is the spirit of solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now be moving on. Thank you for PSAC 901 for speaking. We'll now be moving into ex officio reports. So we will start with Chairperson Sahani. Oops, sorry.
All right. That was a lot of effort for probably not a very long report. But first, I want to thank PSAC 901 for coming and starting to open that dialogue. I think it's really important. There's no new business to report from the board end, but obviously this is a very stressful time. So please feel free to reach out. My inbox is always open.
Chairperson Balog.
All right, thank you. Yeah, apologize if I'm groaning and look not well. I've been on campus since 8 a.m. and going through all of this craziness since the statement about CR and whatnot on Wednesday last week. So, let me go slowly so I don't miss anything and do my best to share. I will try to keep this short, but definitely not in 3. So, Senate met last Thursday. We were supposed to be talking about a couple of smaller things. We're talking about moving seats, so undergraduate first-year admission offers, as in basically the only lever the provincial government has left universities to increase funding other than research, which is highly restricted in where we can actually use it. We do not want to be Laurentian. No, you guys not. No, that's what happened at Laurentian was they moved funds in ways they weren't supposed to and then got in trouble because they were using research funding. Right? They said in their research funds, oh, this will support the building, but most other universities say, no, you're not supposed to use the research money to keep the lights on. That's how they got into about half their issues. The other ones were just spiraling after that. So no, we don't want to go after that. So we're planning on, journal article said we have just wanted, no offense to them, but just wanted to say we still have to vote technically, but yeah, it's, we're planning on moving 300 seats out of arts programs. 100 will stay in Faculty of Arts and Science and go into science-based programs. The other 200 will be split, I guess technically still staying in the faculty, going to computer science as well as commerce, engineering, and Bachelor of Health Sciences. We've been in lots of talks. They've been well advised of capacity limits and stuff. I know Health Sciences likes their active learning rooms, and so they're on a bit of a limit. We're talking about that. We're looking at that. But what happened right at the start was we went into a half-hour conversation about a motion to add a motion that was verbally presented that I still did not fully understand or grasp because we talked about it a million different ways, but it was trying to reaffirm a Faculty of Arts and Science regulation about instructors getting, as our guest just said, instructors getting the right to assign the grades and not having it interfere But the complicated bit of that mess is part of the instructors' rights for how they run their courses come from their collective agreement, as well as the actual grading schemes and stuff, while Senate set a directive in 2011. Yes, October 2011. I was doing a whole bunch of research, went different rabbit hole. It's mostly faculty run and faculty directed, both through immediate power of the deans and associate deans for specific case-by-case basis, and then at a larger scale, faculty board. So that's why nursing has the regulation that they have to get 60% in their courses to pass. And I think Con Ed has some slightly different ones than the rest of us, because those are set by faculty boards. So we went into this thing. I stood up and said, hey, I learned about this yesterday and I've been doing assignments and everything since. I have not had time to read this. I need time to consult students, so do the rest of my senators. We then proceeded to go half an hour back and forth about what is best for students from faculty, deans, and everybody else on Senate. So I was a little disappointed that we didn't slow down and go back to check in with the other student senators that were on Senate and to speak up about that. Yeah. Can I motion to keep talking, please? Because I know I'm rambling, but it's because Senate kicked off most of this. I'll be shorter than my council updates. Okay. I'll get this done too. Okay. Anyway. Okay. The motion was defeated mostly, but it was a motion to amend, so we can still consider it as a formal motion in April. We'll see if we get to that. Since then, I've just been doing my best to prepare for this, finish up my assignments, and consult engineering students because I am an engineering senator, and given that this was a faculty-focused issue, that's where the majority of my energy went and where I asked most of my senators to direct their energy. I actually ended up just getting out of a meeting with the Associate Dean in Engineering a couple hours ago. And so it was confirmed that basically 99% of engineering courses have found a way to get courses to the point where profs can confidently give a letter grade. And so whatever plan that was, if they had to adjust the exam slightly, going more multiple choice than long answer or whatever, the associate dean was aware of that, so was the department head. So that we have that information, I'll be talking to discipline clubs to make sure that they can advocate for students. And yeah, profs were given the directive to where they had options, give it in the best favor of students, mark-wise and whatnot. So now that we kind of know about where things are settling, we're going to keep on looking at that. We've got a couple big end-of-year motions coming up in April. We've got some governance stuff to approve for committees and whatnot, as well as, we might get back to this and see if President Rocky and I have a motion today that we'll be bringing up at Senate should it pass. Just trying to advocate for students who are on scholarship or academic probation. If they get affected by this, right, we have the means within our institution to figure that out, so that's what we're going to try to do. And then other than that, we'll get into the rest of the conversation today about this whole credit, grade deferred, what have we lost, what can still be salvaged, that sort of thing. So yeah, lot going on. Happy to take any questions about that Senate meeting and kind of what I've been able to learn in the last 48 hours. But I think that's after. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to undergraduate trustee. They are not here, so we'll move to Rector Boychuk-Hale.
Thank you. I'm actually not going to use my 3 minutes this evening to share regular business in my office because the purpose is to focus on the strike for this assembly. So I will save my regular report for next week's final assembly, and you will hear from me in a matter of moments during the question period where I'll provide some information about the strike issues that are coming across my desk and how I've been engaging with the community. And as always, if anyone needs anything, you can send me an email or give me a ring, and I'd be happy to chat.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to statements by students. Only students who have paid their AMS membership fees and are undergraduate students at Queen's University are eligible to make a statement. Statements are limited to 5 minutes. As usual, proper etiquette to follow. Are there any students who would wish to make a statement? We had one submitted, so feel free to come up. Oh, and then we have another one. We'll start with the submitted statement, and then we'll move on to the other one.
Good evening. First and foremost, I want to say it's been a privilege meeting so many of you this year. It's been really awesome to meet so many of you. To me, being a student leader means standing up for students, voicing out the concerns of the many students that we all represent. The last time I was at an assembly, I mentioned the privilege and also the responsibility of student leadership. It's not an easy job, as you would all know. It's uncomfortable, it's stressful, it's exhausting, but that's what we all signed up for. And I would hope that many of you would say the same. I've done my best this past year to understand the AMS and warn people in this assembly about issues that I've heard about. In September, I raised about the issues and concerns related to the club commission. Months later, the club commission resigned after acts of violence towards her. During January's assembly, I also once again warned the assembly of a looming strike, an upcoming crisis, and here we are. We're all here because in some form, we represent students and students trust us to represent them. And at times of crisis, this is where true leadership is formed. Students trusted in me to represent them to issue their concerns of the ongoing uncertainties in this institution. This has brought me here once more to speak to you about the urgency of today's current climate in our community. Students do feel a disconnect from their student leaders, as the AMS becomes more of an echo chamber and less of a representation of the student body as it proclaims to be. The lack of transparency is seen clearly by the fact that it is not publicly known who voted in favor, abstained, or voted against the motion to endorse the undergraduate petition, as an issue of transparency that we see that the student body feels is unrepresented by the students that they chose to represent them. It encourages a narrative that student leaders only become student leaders to pad their resumes, which I do know and I do hope is not true for any of you. We share the responsibility to work with one another, discuss and debate motions that truly make a difference in day-to-day life, in day-to-day student life. And even though there might be differences that we have with one another in our politics, in our philosophy, in our religion, and whatever else, today is a day to set those aside and advocate for the greater community that we all love. As an example, don't look further than our first deslated AMS election. Jen and I had the responsibility to set a standard for many more deslated elections to come. An election campaign that was clean, honest, fair, and transparent, which at the end of the day, regardless of who won and loses, candidates can respect one another and grab coffee afterwards, which is exactly what Jen and I did after our campaigns. The point of student leadership is to be an example for students of today and those of tomorrow. And right now, we have the chance to be an example for many generations of student leadership ahead of us. The decisions and topics discussed today will be reviewed by the students far beyond our time, and only they will be able to judge us as a generation of cowards that refuse to fight back against clear injustice, or a generation of heroes that worked together and did some really good, honest work for the Queen's undergraduate student body. Let's put aside our differences we have with one another and build a better Queens and AMS for us all. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to a very productive conversation. Thank you.
Do we have any other statements to be made? Do you have your student card? Okay. Sylvie? Student card. You have to verify the membership. They can come up. Let me see if the other one's longer. I know, but it doesn't go that far.
Thank you. To start off, I'd like to issue, I guess, a statement I'm only a first year, so there's a lot about the strike that I probably don't know about. So if I make any wrong assumptions, then I'm willing to be corrected. I'm here to state my perspective as someone who is intending to transfer universities. This is mostly motivated by personal reasons, but the decision was kind of pushed by the strikes ongoing, because I do agree with the sentiment that we are paying for an education that we're not receiving. And before this, it was a big question, do I want to stay here? I really like the math department and programs here, but now it's kind of I kind of have to leave. One thing that I feel like should be considered is that in order to transfer out, I do need my grades in a timely manner, and my grades are being looked at. Admissions are issued out in the May/June range, so that means that the grades have to be out before then. And if I'm receiving a credit received and I don't really have control over that, or a grade deferred, then I can't really apply to the universities that I'm trying to apply to. And I had to pay $492 for them to send my transcript over, and it feels unfair for that to be the case. I don't have control over this, and I feel like as someone who invested a lot of time into their first year trying to get the grades that they need to graduate, to transfer out, this becomes very problematic. Is that all I have to say? I'm trying to remember. And I'm only an undergraduate student who's been here for 1 year. I'm thinking about all the people who have been here for 4 or more years who are trying to get into law schools and medical programs. They must be feeling a lot worse than me because they've been here for a lot more than 1 year. It just kind of sucks to have circumstances out of your control kind of push your decisions and where you need to be. And it is the university's responsibility that I am able to get an education whether it is here or somewhere else with what they have provided me. And I feel that right now I do not have that. And it's just scary because I need to be able to go home to take care of my family. And right now I kind of have to choose between going home and taking care of them and staying here because I need to do the school. I need to get money so I can support them. I can't afford to wait another year to apply. The time pressure is crushing. And I'm afraid I cannot study for exams as efficiently under these conditions because I do not even know if these grades will amount to anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other statements to be made? Yes, do you have your student card? Okay, hello. I didn't prepare any written statements, so forgive me if if this isn't very, I don't know. But I wanted to talk from the other perspective. I'm in my 7th year at Queens. I've probably been here longer than a lot of you have taken the scenic route, and I'm set to graduate this semester. And so speaking from that perspective, I wanted to say why I want GD instead of CR, even given that I'm someone who's set to graduate and set to go to Teachers College in the fall, and also why I think we deserve a partial tuition refund. I'm taking 5 courses right now. I don't have to be taking 5 courses. I took it for the express purpose of boosting my GPA. I'm taking 1 course right now because I wanted to supplement a poor grade I received in the past due to circumstances out of my control. That is a lot of money that I'm giving to Queens right now, and to now have that taken away from me, to have all my growth reflected by my grades, and to have that money taken away from me for essentially no reason, given that I am paying tuition because I expected a grade in return. I expected my work to be reflected. I expected that grade to be supplemented, and now I'm facing the opportunity of having a CR. I was speaking to one of my profs. I'm taking a 4th year seminar course, and she told me that I should apply for grad school, but I can't even fathom beginning to think of that right now because with CRs, I can't apply to grad school. I did pretty, I'm in my 7th year, which means that I didn't do so well in other years, and I've been working really hard to do well this year, and I was set to do really well this year. And so I need those grades to get into grad school. I deserve those grades. I deserve that effort to be reflected by my transcript. And as the way things are going right now, that's not what's gonna happen, and that's unfair to me. And I'm not the only person who has this situation. A lot of people who are undergraduates don't do the typical 4 or 5 year track. There's a lot of people who depend on their grades, who want to go to grad school and have been working really hard this semester in order to have that reflected in their transcript, and that is not showing up. I know it's slated to talk about it later, but I'm guessing a lot of the issues with the petition and not endorsing it was due to partial tuition refunds, and it's GD instead of CR, especially for graduating students. But I'm a graduating student who really wants GD instead of CR. CR is a Band-Aid that for the administration to not have to pay their TAs properly. CR is an excuse for them to drag on
this non-negotiating as long as possible because they think they can just give everyone CRs and we'll just accept it. But I don't accept it. I don't want to accept it. I have a lot riding on this. I've put a lot of work into this. I put a lot of money into Queens. And so I want that to be reflected. And I don't want this Band-Aid solution that is only, like, a lot of people aren't, this isn't gonna work out well for a lot of people. And that's being pushed away by Queens because they think that, I don't know, they're focusing mainly on people who are on a typical track, disregarding the fact that a lot of people aren't on a typical track, and this has real consequences for them. Yeah, that's my time.
Any other statements? Okay, we'll be moving on to the question period. The question, just for information, the question period allows student at large or members of assembly to ask another member of assembly a question. Questions are limited to 2 minutes in length and responses to 5 minutes. Each person can only ask one question during the question period. Students can have their names displayed on the agenda or remain anonymous. The Secretariat will verify all questions are submitted by eligible undergraduate students. So we'll begin with the questions that were submitted through the governance form stack. And the first question is to the AMS executive, which reads, what have you done since the strike began to help students' needs and support other student leaders?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this one. I already touched on it in my report. But firstly, I just want to say thank you, PSAC, for speaking, and thank you especially to both of the two members who spoke about their experiences. I know it's easy for us to sit as student leaders and express the acknowledgement that this affects people in different ways, but to hear that directly from members really does do something. As I said before, we've been focusing on information sharing up until last Wednesday, where clearly the situation escalated. I'll reiterate again that we're here for guidance, and I think that much of this discussion has been already extremely productive. And admittedly, I've spoken enough tonight, so I'll leave my words to the discussion period later to elaborate on everything we've already talked about and come to motions for me to bring to the senior executive of Queens to advocate on behalf of everybody in this room. So thanks.
Does any of the other executive like to respond?
Thank you. Guys, I'm just a VP, so my apologies, he forgot about me. I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, but we have talked a lot about the mental health resources that are available to students. Like, we are stressing the importance of letting us know how we can get these better accessible to you as well. If you are having difficulties with accessing student wellness or SAS or any of the resources available on campus, please let us know, so that we can have the proper conversations as well. We also have a service that the AMS pays for on behalf of all undergraduate students called Empower Me. It is free. You get 8 sessions for counseling. It is accessible and online. Please make sure that you're using this as well if that's more convenient for you. Again, like, we have the Peer Support Center, which is really important to us. It's a service that we use all the time. The Social Issues Commission, we are here with resources, and we are stressing how important it is for you guys to come to us and let us know how we can assist you and what help you need from us completely. I'm so sorry.
Okay. We'll move on to the next question then. This is for Senate Caucus Chair Balog. Given the ongoing impact of the strike on undergraduates, what is a tangible advocacy position from an academic lens?
Yeah, thank you. Caucus Chair Balog here. Just a quick question. Is the member who asked this in the room? I just had a couple different ways that you could have meant tangible and want to make sure I focus on the right one.
The question was submitted through form stack.
Oh, okay, I'll just take a stab at both of them. Okay, so tangible in the face of students will actively see it. It is that one's going to come down more at a faculty and department level, right? Like the requirements are so vast between programs and stuff. It's hard to have kind of a high, yes, this is across the board what we should do, and I think that's where the communications from the university have either been misread or just poorly written. Is credit was meant the whole here's the option for if you if an instructor feels they cannot give a letter grade, give credit because we got what 8 weeks through the semester. If you're doing pretty good, we should have been able to kind of get, okay, they got about 50% of the content. That's where, or more than that, right? That's about where, that's about where we would give a pass anyway. Like somebody could theoretically come in, get 100% on the midterm, and then pass the course without writing the rest. But that's not great in some cases, and there's been things reweighted all over the place. We've got a couple hundred courses here, right? We're not figuring that out here of what should it be multiple choice? Should it be more this? Should we just wait this out and do nothing until the strike is figured out, and then we know that we have the TAs back, the grad TAs back, and then we can do the assessments we were originally planning, right? There's a whole bunch of different options there, and it's just kind of going to get confusing if we as student leaders start trying to do things at this high level for this is how these courses must go. So I think it comes down to really discipline clubs and faculty societies doing their best to just canvass as many members as possible, right? Like especially like that online, that open letter is actually quite helpful because you can just kind of go on and go, you can go Control F, and I was able to do that again in my engineering one. And I went through and went, hey, there was like 63 engineers out of the 1,500 that had signed it, and there was a good chunk in chemical engineering. I went, let's go check what's going on in chemical engineering. Guess what? There was a weird course. Something happened. There was a faculty member teaching the first 6 weeks and a graduate teaching fellow teaching the second 6 weeks. So communication was kind of all over the place because the prof had kind of come back, but they're also like, I'm about to go on sabbatical. Like, who's dealing with this? Clocked it with the discipline club, clocked it with the Associate Dean Academics, and now we're on top of it and figuring it out. And I'm going to send an email as soon as we're done tonight to the a couple students that had clarified and brought that one forward to me, right? So those are tangible things of, hey, let's figure this out. Okay, this is the specific issue in this specific course. Let's bring that up. As frontline student leaders and as people that are leading faculty societies in this room, that is a great way of just going, hey, we know it's confusing. This is the general direction. If things are straying, let's bring it up. Let's find these. We've heard quite a few unique scenarios in this room. That is the point where we are at now. For a lot of cases, is figuring out these unique scenarios and going, okay, now we're trying to find these vague things. They're not fitting in too well with the original. I don't even want to say original because I know we've changed like 4 times. But the plan we currently have now. I guess tangible from a what can we actually achieve perspective, because well we have 3 votes on the board of trustees, but they're NDA'd in what they can say, as well as the part of the board of trustees that actually says yes, you can offer this higher package to 901 is the HR committee, which we don't have, which no students have votes on. So in terms of, as well as I've been staring at these budgets for 2 years since we started this thing, and I'm slowly figuring it out. I had some commerce senators this year, and I actually admitted that, yeah, maybe they do learn something that old engineering rhetoric is getting out of me. Sorry, I'm focusing. I know. Right, but what President Rocky and I, after how many times did I call you this weekend? 3 or 4. Yeah, after like 3rd or 4th phone call, we're like, okay, what are some niche cases we're recognizing that we could actually deal with at a university-wide level? And that's when we clocked, hey, we've got scholarships that if a student had done all their hard courses in the first semester and then all the second courses in the second semester, and now second semester is all up and this, that, and the other thing, well, that's not super fair, right? So maybe we should be trying to advocate at Senate, because there's a scholarship committee there, or in just meetings with people like the who's that under? Dean of Student Affairs, I think their office, of like, hey, can we start the process and go through lowering or dropping the renewal requirements for scholarships this year? And then same thing for academic probation. Right? Well, that's not fair if a student failed a bunch of courses last semester, got told, hey, you're on academic probation this semester. I don't know. And, right? And they were trying to figure it out. And now all this mess happens. It's not their fault. So we're going to try to extend that, figure it out. So there's lots of things we can do.
Point of
Yes,
order.
yes, I'm done.
Okay. Sorry. Just as a note, like if someone's answer is going to go beyond the 5 minutes, you can motion to get more speaking time. We just want to be consistent.
Start giving me a heads up about halfway.
I do. Okay. Moving on to Rector Boychuk-Hale. As a representative of undergraduate and graduate students impacted by the ongoing strikes, how has the rector advanced the interests of students at Queen's?
Hello. Oh, there we go. So first, thank you to whomever submitted this question. It's very thoughtful. I very first and foremost would like to declare my conflict of interest. I am a graduate student with contracts as a research assistant, as a teaching assistant, and a teaching fellow with the Faculty of Education. So I'm clearly a member of PSAC 901. I have been on strike since March 10th. And so I'm going to do my absolute best to speak without influence from my role and opinions as a graduate worker. And I know that this conflict of interest has made some undergraduate students uncomfortable, but as always, I remain actively engaged in supporting the interests of all Queen's students despite my own personal experiences or opinions. Okay, so to the question, I am advancing the interests of students like a balancing act. So let me elaborate. We have all, I think, come to understand that there are very few people who have been untouched by the impacts of the strike, which is a testament to Queen's need for grad student workers. I personally feel incredibly sad that undergraduate students have been particularly exposed to these impacts through loss of grading and feedback, tutorials canceled, and uncertainty heading into the examination period. It is reasonable for undergraduate students to feel quite upset, frustrated, anxious, and any other emotion that they are feeling right now. Now, here's where the balancing comes in. I do remain adamant that striking is an important measure. The pains being felt right now prove that Queen's needs graduate workers to deliver its undergraduate program. And while it's important that we are thinking about how to support undergraduate students, it's also a reality that the purpose of this strike is for those pains to be felt. Undergraduate students need their needs met, and grad students are well within their rights to have withdrawn their TA and TF hours until a tentative agreement is made. So that is the balancing act I am walking as I support the interests of students. So I'll go over 3 things that I have been able to do to maintain this line. The first is the direct communications with what I'll call the average student. So I continue to respond to each and every single email that comes through. And in many cases, I've had further phone calls one-on-one with students. For undergraduate students looking for ways to put pressure on the university, I have provided guidance and suggestions on strategies that they can use. And I've actually seen quite a few of them in action over the last couple of weeks, and they seem to have been productive in stirring conversation. The verbal statements by the 2 students tonight, I think, perfectly reflect my inbox lately, as they are examples of completely opposing needs that are both entirely valid but require solutions that are not going to be a blanket policy on all undergraduate students. So the second thing is how I'm interacting with student leaders. So this is quite simple. I've been fielding a lot of calls from many of you in the room, actually, and doing my best with the information I have to provide you context and to support you as you navigate the situation. And third is what I'm doing to bring these student experiences to the administration. So I, like any other issue, maintain regular communication with the administration. A day has not gone by where I don't speak with the principal, the provost, or the staff within their offices. And particularly, I have been highlighting the communication breakdown going on and bringing questions from students and student leaders. And I'm hoping that as this progresses, we will see some clear communication changes and improvements. And one, I guess, tangible item is during the second week of the strike, it was becoming apparent that grading may have to change in some courses. And so I asked the university, the provost and the principal, to include a disclaimer on transcripts next to any cases that the grading mechanism has changed, to notify anyone reading a student's transcript of the circumstances for why they weren't given a regular letter grade. This practice happened in 2021 when I was a first-year student and our year got cut off by the pandemic. So I know that it's entirely possible, and right now, the university says that they will consider it. I will continue pressing them on this measure, and if this is something that you would like to see happen, I encourage you to send emails to the principal, the provost, and your faculty dean. I'm looking forward to listening to the conversation tonight. And while I know the Special Assembly was called to discuss ways to support undergraduate students during the strike, I would like to draw to Assembly's attention that we may want to consider focusing our ideas on how to push for the process of bargaining to continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move into the last submitted question, which is to ASSIS President Elitis. What steps has the Arts and Science Undergraduate Society taken to ensure that their students are supported during the ongoing strike?
Okay, hi everyone. As president of Arts and Science Undergraduate Society, we do represent over 13,000 students, so we represent over 60% of undergraduate students on campus who are the ones that are being affected academically. So immediately on March 12th, ASSIS released a statement in support and standing, recognizing and standing in support of PSAC 901 and their bargaining efforts. The three of us as executives, we recognize the importance that graduate students play into our education as undergraduate students, particularly with all the relationships you form with your TAs, the additional learning you get with them. And we recognize how critical that is, sort of that one-on-one time that you more often than not can get with a TA than you can with your professor. So we recognize that right away. From this point, we've continued to advocate with our faculty. As has been mentioned many times, a lot of these decisions can be made at the faculty level in terms of what they do to support students. So similar to what Rector Boychuk-Hale has just shared, we have also been working with our faculty to push them to get an indication on a transcript as to why grades may appear as a C, R instead of a letter grade. In a memo that was sent to the faculty, all faculty in the Faculty of Arts and Science, so that also includes all Con Ed, Kin, and computing faculty members as well. We consulted on the memo with the Associate Dean of Academics and her team. They are pushing for letter grades for arts and science students, which we have continued to advocate for as well. We've heard concerns from students. We've brought concerns up to our associate deans from our DSC co-presidents who have talked to their students. We've had these channels to bring us questions that we've been able to bring further up to the faculty level. So the directive to faculty in the arts and science faculty right now is to try to do a letter grade. And I know in talking with students, a lot of profs have started modifying syllabuses in the hope that it's going to make it more possible for people to be getting letter grades. The faculty is also encouraging for CR opposed to a GD. The main purpose that we've heard from this this call is that a GD will stop everything for a student if it's not resolved in a timely fashion. Seeing sort of where Queens is standing at this point, it is continuing, but the concern with a GD is if you are in fourth year, you cannot graduate. If you are in first year, you cannot pick a major. If you're in any other year, you cannot pick a class. You cannot pick your courses until that GD is changed. So there is that potential that if we don't see the university continue bargaining in a timely manner, that.
No, the question I want to ask specifically, not just as a senator, but what specifically, like what, in terms of takeaways, what can we take away from today and how will that impact next Senate meeting, right? Like you talked about it a little bit, but if you could elaborate, I don't know, like technically, ACES has people here who sit on AMS as well as Senate, right? And I've sat here as proxy for ComSoc for this entire year. We have a lot of people that wear many different hats. And so the question I want to ask you specifically, or however you want to take your 5 minutes to answer, I really just want to give you another 5 minutes to talk, if I'm being honest. I love hearing you talk, Lucas. But the question I want to ask is, I don't know, how is this going to impact next Senate meeting? What can Senate do reasonably? You talked about the HR committee. I don't know what, like we were there with the Board of Trustees, right? Like a few other people were here in this room, but we were only there for 3 hours, right? 3 hours is not enough time. You know, and the students, they're talking, bro. Like you see the Reddit posts, like they're getting so many upvotes, like damn. No, but I don't know. I have 30 seconds left. Okay. Yeah, we can let the time run out a little bit, but no. I don't know. What should we do at the last Senate meeting? What do you think, Lucas?
As caucus chair, my role is to support all of the other senators as much as possible. So yourself and, oh boy, how many art site senators do we have in here? I think behind me, 2 or 3. It's a weird beast because every time we grow this university, Senate delegates more and more of its authority to faculty boards and various committees and groups. Not necessarily in a way of shedding its responsibility, but making sure that decisions we're making for respective areas and groups are being made by people at that level. So that, yeah, like that's a conversation that we've had a lot about the governance of Senate, is what is appropriate for these university-wide entities to be doing that's helpful and showing leadership and setting this university on a path together and solving issues, and what is overstepping bounds in areas we don't know. Like I've said it quite a few times. We talk about lots of program suspensions or changes in different faculties that are not my home faculty, and I can read it through and go, yep, this seems to have gone through the right governance process and things like that. But I'm going to be honest, there was like a computer science one that showed up a week ago. I had to pull Owen aside and go, what in the world is a specialization? Figured out why we're suspending that program and shifting it around to better match the modularization of arts and science and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think we can voice that there's confusion, and that if we maybe need to communicate better that the credit is the option, and that where applicable, and typically speaking, where the prof, the course instructor has said, yes, I feel confident giving a grade, we're going to give that grade as a university, right? Now, again, that we then see issues where complications where there was a teaching fellow on that course, so now who's responsible for it? We have some complications where faculty members have invoked their right to sympathy strike. Right? There's far higher rates of sympathy striking in Faculty of Arts and Science and Engineering. Those are the only two that I've been able to kind of get numbers on. The other ones, I've heard different things, just kind of firsthand experiences. I haven't talked to anybody who actually has those numbers. So yeah, so we can bring it up. But I mean, this this motion about the conversation we kind of had at very short notice and was confusing at the start of Senate about credit and grade deferred, I think is going to come up again. And I think it's important that student senators in their home faculties get a good grasp of what students in their faculty want, and what their faculty members and the administrative part of their faculty have figured out and have planned, so that we know, okay, do we need to be doing stuff like adding this directive for transcripts at the Senate level, or do we need to be going, okay, the faculties are too different, which is starting to look like what it is, but I don't want to confirm that 100% yet. And do we need to go, okay, maybe we need to just make sure the faculty boards have the authority to put that on their transcript or do what they need to do to keep going, and kind of go from there. Especially because last thing I'll point out is when Senate started, it was all the instructors of the university made up Senate. That is no longer the case. Now all the instructors make up the faculty boards. So in terms of keeping with how this university is founded, it would almost make more sense that these things are done at a faculty board level where every instructor has the right to go and vote, and can share what's going on there. But for the most part, as students, we should all have at least rights to go to those and present, and for the most part, I think have votes. I know engineering grad students and undergrads have votes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes. We're good with this. Okay.
So my questions aren't really directed towards anyone in particular, but if anyone has an answer, that would be great. The first one is just if the process of appealing a CR on a transcript is accessible even once you've graduated, because I can imagine it'd be a lot easier to get a response if you're still a student than after you've graduated. And then my second one is just more of a statement, but if, as student leaders, if you guys are meeting with departments and with the faculty and administration, I would highly encourage you guys to have them discuss the issue of how they're going to address it within their departments and within classes as a group to see what other solutions are out there and what's possible and what other profs are doing, because as someone who's in a course right now with the Faculty of Arts and Science and also with Commerce, it's giving very two different vibes, with the Commerce profs even mentioning how they've been offered money for scab labor. So I would like to bring that to everyone's attention. So please encourage them to collaborate with one another and between departments as well. I think that's incredibly important, and I haven't heard much about that being done already. So thank you.
If you can answer the question, go ahead, President.
President Olias asked this. So in terms of requesting to convert your CR, I'm not sure about all the logistical side of it. That is something that any academic advisor in the faculty office can support you with. They're available via email. I will say, though, that if you have a GD, you also still need to talk to your professor to change it. So even if it's a CR or a CD, you still need to be the one to do the steps with your professor to get that change, and they still need to submit that change of grade. So even if the grade is deferred, you now need to take the extra steps to get that changed. In terms of your second point, it's challenging because as the Associate Dean of Academics has said quite a few times to art science students, is each department has their own autonomy in how to go about it. And it is challenging because we are seeing that different departments are treating the strike differently, and they're doing things in the way that they think is correct, but there's sort of minimal oversight from the faculty office on that for arts and science, at least, which is where it's a little challenging. So like that memo that went out today, that was really the first big thing of sort of department or a faculty-wide directive, which to my understanding has not been happening as much. But it is something that the associate dean and the faculty is aware of, that they want all students to have.
What's been running with our program from our director, we don't have a dean, we have a director, is they've actually been collaborating directly with health sciences, and that like kind of like they're working together. So it's more of that collaboration aspect. And they are trying to push for that more with our electives and all that. So that is happening as kind of like the background. As much as it's not being seen, it is happening. And we are there specifically with accommodations for students and all that to support students, especially during the exam period.
Only other thing I'll add is, the Associate Dean Academics meet quite regularly, as well as oftentimes bringing in their school level counterparts, just to try to keep on the same page, also deal with students that are taking courses in a different faculty or a different school, kind of that cross-regulation stuff. It does get a bit tricky because they're basically translating amongst each other of slightly varying regulations, but trying to keep it as similar as possible, but as we've kind of already talked about today, there's so much different autonomy throughout the university that it can be hard to do that once we finally get to the final kind of stages of some things.
Answer two? Okay. Feel free.
I know that it was more of like a statement, but I will respond with my fellow assembly members. I think that you can correct me if I'm wrong, the sentiment you're expressing is that there's likely some better or worse steps that have been taken at the faculty or program or department level that maybe can be talked about, because there might be some faculties that are addressing situations in a great way that others don't even know about. And I'm not sure the level of collaboration, but what I will take away from this is speaking to some of those faculties and asking how they are collaborating and what they are doing. Is that kind of what you were trying to get across? Okay, thank you. And if you want to hear what I find, send me an email. Thank you.
President Savathson from ComSoc. I just wanted to acknowledge the point that was made in regards to the commerce faculty member that you may have been referring to in regards to the scabbing of PSAC 901 members' work. I just wanted to state that this was something that we were not aware of ahead of time, so thank you for sharing that. We'll be bringing this to our Associate Dean to explore how what measures the commerce faculty is taking to address the impact to undergraduate students through the strike. So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. I will be moving on to new business at this point. Anything further, feel free to bring it to the discussion period. So the first motion is motion 2, and this is moved by President Rocky, seconded by Chairperson Balog, that the AMS Assembly direct the AMS President to advocate for an exemption to regular GPA requirements for both scholarships and academic probation.
Yeah, I think both me and Lucas have both already touched on this and also talked enough. I know. Yeah. But it's I guess self-explanatory in the sense that if a student was expecting to be able to use this semester to boost their grades for these two valuable and serious things such as scholarships, academic probation, we're looking to advocate to the senior leadership team to ensure that this can happen. Happy for any comments. I know we want to stay quick to time, so if there's any advice for an approach that would be more helpful shared asynchronously, feel happy to reach out asynchronously. But happy for any comments.
Caucus Chair Balog, just kind of a heads up, this may get executed in a few different ways. Definitely first step is just talking to a lot of different people, but it's what governing bodies and what people have jurisdiction to do what is a little complicated in the scholarship area. I've already been doing some work on a slightly different thing, so just a heads up that we'll have answers and be happy to update as we're asked, but it'll just be kind of an evolving thing that we'll do our best to get it done as quickly as possible and share results, but we don't know 100% the direction where this is going to go, but having the support of Assembly goes a long way.
Okay. Anyone like to speak to the motion?
Hello? I have a question. Can you give like maybe one or two short examples? Because I can see the benefit for a student who would be negatively affected, like their GPA dropped because they now have a credit something. But what about a student who, like, if they had the credit standing, actually made them eligible to get out of academic probation? Like, does that affect anything? Like, okay.
If a student, in a very extreme case that hopefully won't happen at all, if it does very, very little, that a student, every single one of their courses this semester gets credit, their GPA kind of goes to zero in a sense if you're just looking at that semester, and has no effect. So whatever a student's if none of their courses this semester affect their GPA, whatever a student had as soon as transcripts came out from semester 1, so like January 17th, whatever that GPA was, is the one you'd have going through the summer as we're kicking through all the academic probation stuff and all the scholarship stuff. Right, so that just doesn't happen great, as well as it kind of lowers it. So even if you only ended up getting credit in one course, all of a sudden your first semester is weighted far higher because there's 5 credits, there's 5 courses worth of GPA in first semester, but then maybe only 4 in second semester because that a course with a credit doesn't count, it doesn't affect your GPA, plus or minus.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Now we'll be moving on to the discussion period. The first topic is how the university's senior leadership decisions have affected the undergraduate student body, and how the university's senior leadership can do more to properly communicate with the undergraduate student body. Pardon me? Oh, would you like to speak to them?
Hey guys, so I bring this topic to the assembly today because I do think, based off what I've seen this year, just this year alone, we've had risk to graduate funding, we've had staff and faculty layoffs that I've personally witnessed, especially during my internship with Smith Engineering, and now we have a strike that's on their 3rd week that's consistently impacting undergraduate students. We've heard it from a few people today: exams, tutorials, labs. This strike and the leadership, or the lack of leadership, of this senior administration has affected students in many different ways. And you could read through online posts, blogs, personal conversations with students. Many students have been impacted by the decisions that this university, this university's leadership has taken. And I think it's more than valuable to have a conversation with the AMS assembly and with student leaders to just have this conversation in regards of what we can do on behalf of the AMS assembly to perhaps hold the senior leadership more accountable upon their actions. And of course, if there's need of conversation about this too, how can the university senior leadership do more to properly communicate with the undergraduate student body? Of course, I also understand that there's issues in regards of the province's decisions in regards to education, but this is also in charge of this. A lot of the issues that we're currently dealing with too, in my honest opinion, is also because of the mismanagement and lack of strategic planning from the university senior leadership. I've seen it myself personally when I first had my first town hall with our current senior leadership. They're planning, long-term planning and long-term ideas to increase funding for the university is to rely more on international student enrollment. And when I asked them what is the what would be an alternative strategy should there be a cap of international students by the federal government, they had no plan. And months later, that's exactly what happened. So to be honest, as a student myself, I've completely lost faith in leadership from the university administration. And I just want to introduce this discussion topic to the floor to see what other student leaders are thinking about the current issues that are affecting our campus and how it's affecting our undergraduate body as a whole, which many of you have been elected to represent. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Sarah?
Hi, everyone. You may not know me. My name is Sarah Oshry. I'm currently the Talent Acquisition Manager at the AMS, so I do work there. However, I'd like to talk about my experience and how I've faced a lot of struggles with the strike. I'm currently a fourth-year politics student, and I actually declined my offer for grad school at Queen's due to the strike. However, I'm currently taking a first-year economics course as a requirement for my degree that I'm hoping to go to. And with the credit receiving, I will not have the grade to get in. And after talking, I will be at the university that I'm attending next year. I have been told that with the credit receiving, I will have to retake that course. So that means that now I have to pay for 2 courses of a course that I'm going to pass. So, and I think really, I think it was brought up a lot that there are very extenuating and different circumstances for each student. And I really appreciate how much the student leaders are doing to kind of support first years and fourth years. I think fourth years, for now, it's a very scary moment. I'm very lucky that my seminars are being taught by professors and I'm not affected by the strike, but I have fellow friends who have seminars taught by teaching fellows who have no grade standing because of 50% exam, 50% essay. So they don't even know if they're even gonna get credit for the course period. So I'm really hoping, and I really appreciate all the really meaningful discussion around here. I just wanted to come up and discuss my experience. I came because I feel strongly about the strikes. I feel strongly about supporting students, and I feel strongly about student government. And I hope that other students who are facing similar issues as me can also talk about these discussions and ways in which the university can support them past their undergraduate experiences.
Anyone else like to speak to this discussion point? I'll go first, you, and then to the audience.
Sorry, am I talking first or is you talking first?
You're talking first.
Oh, okay. Big mistake, Okay. Good question. I kind of want to share a story of what I was doing right before my robot broke today. But I was sitting in my class of a bunch of my fellow students who know I'm quite involved and do stuff. They couldn't explain to you what it is I do because they just kind of keep going with their day. I gladly share things, but for the most part, governance is kind of boring things to most people. But yeah, we had a bit of a conversation about where we're going, grades, the strike, the program in general. We just had CAB here, so there were some questions and we were talking about that. And yeah, somehow me and like the VP academics for Tron Club ended up doing a weird town hall. But we talked about some things and somebody said something about the provost and there was like 3 people that went, "Who's the provost?" And I went, maybe this is part of our issue here, eh? But right, in all seriousness, I do my best to do formal kind of consultations with student groups, DSCs, FACSOCs, whatever, when we have proper decisions to make. But when I'm just kind of curious, I just kind of go around and bump into students that I know and ask general questions and just kind of lead a conversation, but try to see what's going on. And a lot of times I'll go, "Hey, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? The email statement from the principal or the provost. I brought up Queen's 2040 after we had gotten like the 2 or 3 kind of initial emails, and people just go, "Oh, as soon as I get an email from them, I just delete it," right? So it's kind of weird and complicated. It's hard to fit. As kind of I alluded to earlier with our guest speakers, it's kind of hard to fit full statements and stuff into Instagram and social media posts because either everybody just keeps swiping or, you get them and you're trying to zoom in to read the statement, and it's also not accessible. Like anybody who has a text to voice software and stuff can't read social media posts, right? So from most standing points to give official statements and give official updates, these emails and these website statements are kind of the best communication tool that they've had, as well as the most consistent one of us as student leaders. When we need information, we know where to get it because that's where we've been doing it for years. So there's not a great thing about that, but I also recognize and know that a lot of people have their rep or their person that they know is involved with their faculty society, with their discipline club, with the university at larger bounds, right? So how maybe do we do a better job of getting that kind of Queen's community back of, oh, I don't know that answer, but my buddy Bob, my buddy Owen, this has been quite a few times where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go text the AMS president and get back to you with that answer, and sound very, very smart. And my classmates laugh at me as I walk away, but I'm the one who's laughing. No. Right? It's we have fun, but leaders are going to lead in different ways. Right? You don't necessarily need a title to lead, but once you're seen in that leadership position, you have that responsibility to be calm, to be listening, to be hearing these things, and to know what to do with it, and more importantly, to admit when you're out of your game. Again, I've been doing my best to try to keep up with this 901, with this whole strike and 901's updates, but I've taken one law course in corporate law that barely touched on bargaining and unions and that sort of stuff, right? Like that is out of my wheelhouse, and for the most part I go, this is kind of what I know, go here if you want some more information, but for the most part, unfortunately, that's not my area, that's not my expertise. So maybe we need to talk about also enhancing that expertise, so that we have our specific leaders that are talking to the administration about different things, and it's not always the AMS president, even though Owen and Ruth and the executive, I think, have done a great job bringing things, especially housing. The administration knows damn well there's not enough housing. Right? But yeah, maybe we need to try to diversify some things and try to get a bit more out there who's actually talking to who, and some avenues, right? Like I'll even mention Nikki's role. They think I make up a word when I say the rector. Even though Nikki's done a great job putting that in the intro thing, I don't know, I barely did anything the summer before I got here. I'm like, I'm not doing homework, I just got out of high school. Right? It's a challenge sometimes, and it's a back and forth, but it's up to us that are here every day to keep going and putting up the good fight and bringing in people in who say, hey, I see this issue, I want to help, and going like, hey, great, you want to help. There's a lot, and you need to be there consistently, but if you're truly passionate about this, there's a lot you can do. Here's what I've learned in my role, and as I'm starting to age out of this university and out of my role, I'm excited to pass that on to the people that would be taking on after me. So yeah, just my 2 cents on this, because it's been a long conversation.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up again. I believe Adlira had a comment, and then we'll move around. We also need your student card.
Hi everyone, I'm Adlira. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience being a third-year politics student within the Faculty of Arts and Science. We are greatly affected. As someone who is taking 4 political science courses, all of which are at risk of getting a CR, we're not talking about a student getting 1 CR, we're talking about getting multiple. Essentially my entire semester just getting CR instead of a grade. With having aspirations to go to grad school and potentially law school this upcoming fall, applications with having an entire semester of just a CR and probably like half a semester of grades doesn't really look good or even consider viable for these grad school applications. And with that, I'm not the only one. Majority of people in politics and even the arts and within the faculty are going through this. One of my courses are taught by a teaching fellow, and the rest are work on the backbones of TAs. Our final exams aren't multiple choice, they're all written. And the people who mark these are TAs. And so even with these syllabus adjustments that are said to be done and will be proceeded, we all know that they won't get marked because who will mark them unless the professors, and that will ultimately go towards scabbing. And so that's what this semester, and to be able to kind of compensate for that grade loss, I'll either have to take all of those 4 courses or others within the summer, which I would have to pay for again, which is paying for more money, more credits that I shouldn't have to done in the first place. And that also, like, what if I wasn't a student who would be able to pay for those? Where would I get student funding? Where would I be able to get the financial resources to take grades again just because I couldn't get the grade for my original hard work? And for me personally, I will be working full-time this summer and the school year. I want to study for the LSAT and get a great score on the LSAT. And how will I do that with a full course load, working 40 hours a week, and trying to study for an exam that will ultimately have a huge part to play in my law school applications or even other grad school applications? And I'm not the only one going through this. I feel like a lot has been said about graduating students, and I understand that grade deferrals will impact that. But we also have to consider second year and third years, and obviously the first years as well, as we haven't even applied to grad school yet. We still have yet to apply to grad school or law schools, and this will ultimately affect our applications. And I know it's been said that we can add a hyperlink towards these credit received, but if you have 4 credit received, and it's not like this is an issue that's across multiple universities, this is a Queens issue. And ultimately, law schools or even med schools or any other professional schools or grad schools, they wouldn't, at least in my eyes, they don't seem to be would want to accommodate that. They'd rather take someone who's had grades and have been able to prove that they've been able to study and be successful in their academics. And so coming from someone who is at risk of taking an entire semester of credit receives, I really urge you all to advocate for these letter grades and push towards your department heads. I've had conversations with my department head, and he has not been the most helpful. And so go to those higher ups. If the department head doesn't help you, go to the dean. If the dean hasn't helped you, go to someone else. Go to senior admin. Please, I urge you. Sorry?
Associate Dean Academic.
Yes, Jen Stevenson.
Sorry, engineer just
And to add on to that, my course load coming up will also be very packed because I was in my lifetime my first 2 years, and I have to make sure I graduate with my politics degree on time. And I've been taking 6 courses this semester, last semester, to be able to graduate on time. Having to retake these courses and try to compensate for that grade loss will also ultimately make me have to graduate a semester later, which consequently pushes back my graduate plans and my grad school plans even further. So I just wanted to kind of shed light on that, and please advocate for yourselves, everyone. Talk to those heads, talk to your students. And also I wanted one more point to say is that I feel that we've been taking a very equality type approach to this situation. And the reality is this decision isn't gonna help one student or all students. Every student has different needs. Every student has something that they want. I have a 4th year in my class for my teaching fellow class that she's already got into grad school. She's like, okay, I'll take the CR. I'm out of here. I'm already have my plan on to go into grad school this semester. CR doesn't affect me. I'm over here, or like, guys, I need my grades, please. I want to get to law school. I beg. So please, advocate for me, advocate with me, and help us all kind of collectively to this agreement. And try maybe, like, I'm not gonna say, oh, GD, CR, whatever, but maybe even try to push for professors to give both. Give to whatever the student needs, please. Give the CR to that graduating student, give me my letter grade. It also reduces their grading work as well. And so kind of moving away from a solution for everyone and making it more targeted. So that's my experience. Thank you.
Continuing on this discussion topic, I believe I said Vice President Cohen could speak next.
VP Cowan for COMSA. I just want to briefly talk about the second question you had. In my opinion, the best thing that we could do is get those senior leaders right in front of students. Last week, we ran a town hall with our director. Our undergrad program chair came as well, and they just answered questions from students. Our faculty's main approach at the moment is they're telling us that all of our students will receive a letter grade. And so I think what I would say to my fellow leaders is if these senior leaders within your faculties are willing to talk to students, maybe plan the event for them, because we found that was the biggest obstacle to them, is they didn't want to do all the logistics. So once we took that and we planned the event for them, they came out, they answered questions from students for, I want to say, an hour and a half, and it was a great experience. So mostly answering the second part of your question.
Thank you. This is like really logistically okay. I'm also okay with not speaking yet, if that works best for everyone.
I think we should finish this discussion topic and come back.
Okay, I was just gonna say that in terms of, as Lucas said, like, you don't have to be an elected student leader to be a student leader. You clearly take on that responsibility very seriously and continue to allow yourself to be a safe space for our students who are comfortable with coming to you to advocate on their behalf. So keep doing that, and I think it's wonderful that you get to do that. Don't cry. But also, okay, anyway, we're gonna keep going. But I was gonna say, in terms of this, it's really important for us, like, when we continue to meet with student leaders, like, and also like student leadership, elected and non-elected, that people are continuously transparent with us and also understanding of like the parameters of what we get to do. Like, as AMS exec, like assembly, we have 3 votes. Assembly has several votes, and how many votes does ASUS have? Like, okay, Eng has like 6 or something like that. So there's other people here, and when we say assembly is a collective body. So the idea that the AMS works on the direction of assembly, who are your other elected individuals, and I will always stress the importance of understanding the reason why you have to participate in your faculty society elections, because those are your elected representatives that come here and tell us what to do. So that's the first thing. Second thing I'm going to say is we continue to talk to senior admin about the importance of open communication. I'm telling you, all the meetings we've had with them in the last 2 months have been, your students are confused. They don't know what's going on. How are you going to communicate with them? What's your plan to talk to them? Most of your students don't understand what a strike looks like. They don't get what the bargaining team is. I've said, what was Queen's offer versus what was PSAC's offer? Like, I'm in student government, and for the most part, at the beginning, I didn't understand what the hell was going on. And obviously that takes taking time to research and understand what's happening. But at the end of the day, when it comes to senior admin, like, it's always been, how do you efficiently communicate with your students? I know Josh mentioned that he had his faculty society or faculty representatives be present at a town hall. Again, this was called in such a rush that when we sent out an invite to the people who were responsible, we weren't able to get them here. And that honestly is unfortunate, but we did really try to get students an answer from the provost's office or from the people who are academically responsible for their grades. I think it's also important to understand, like Adlira already said, like, this is a faculty-specific issue and in a lot of ways a program-specific issue as well. So this boils back down to that ability for you to participate in your elections and in those electoral bodies within your faculty societies. Like, not to put ASUS on the spot, I know they're working their bums off too. So if you want to get Jen Stevenson in a room answering your questions, I've heard that it wasn't the most useful situation when it was there, but maybe we get her there again. Like, if you want to get your deans from other faculties, pardon? Exactly, right? So like, I heard that you guys had her, and I heard that students left unsatisfied. But if it means that we go back again and we get them on email, we do that. Like, we're willing to do whatever as long as we're directed to do it. Like, because again, like, when it comes to the strike, like, PSAC has the right to strike. We stand completely behind that. But when it comes to being able to talk to senior leadership, like, as much as they're important, like, a lot of what we're hearing the university tell us is that this is faculty specific, this is program specific, this is professor specific. And our students, more than anything, need to be equipped to be able to fight for themselves. The specific policies, speak to your elected representatives in ASUS, in ComSci, and whatever it is, and ask them how you can advocate for yourself. I know there's one policy that doesn't let a professor change your syllabus if it negatively impacts you. How many of our students know that? How many of them are able to get in an email or talk to those people? Your DSC presidents are there as well. These people are elected individuals, and as much as that responsibility lies with the AMS to have these conversations, and we're having them in the central places that we can, because again, we are your central student government, we're also asking that students also participate in with the smaller things too, with their professors, and let us know when that conversation is not working. If you're talking to your dean and they're not being responsive, we'll escalate it up for you, but we just don't know that that's happening. Are you an undergraduate student? Here you go, Emma.
Would we like to continue or entertain a motion for a break? Do I have a mover? Okay, all those in favor of motioning for a 15-minute break, please raise your placard. Those against, please raise them. All those who abstain, motion passes. know the dance? Okay, I still am waiting for. Where are the executives? Okay, everyone. In the interest of moving things along, if there are still students who wish to speak to this discussion item, please do so now or else we will be moving on. I will allow one more comment and then we'll be moving on. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. I'm just gonna write it down. Sorry.
Hello? Hi. Hi, sorry, this is my first AMS assembly, so I'm a little... I just had a couple comments, a couple questions. First of all, I heard earlier that, and I'm a fourth year engineering student. I heard earlier that there was not going to be there were very rare exceptions where there were CRs or DGs for engineering, which is good to hear, but it's also concerning because I'm wondering where are those letter grades coming from? I mean, I have 5 computer engineering courses. 3 of the courses, they haven't changed anything at all. And one of the courses was asking students to mark their own work and forcing students to scab, basically, or not get a mark for that course, which is concerning. And so I'm just wondering, I mean, if this is true that computer engineering is not gonna, or sorry, engineering in general is not gonna have CR or DG, where is this labor coming from? I was also wondering, I think there was a comment made earlier about going to our faculty senior leadership. But I think someone else earlier said also when you do go to your specific faculty, they direct you to escalate this. And also senior leadership at the very top has been saying that you need to go back to your faculty. So it seems like this cyclical thing, and there's not very much transparency for students. I had one more point, but now I'm forgetting it. But yeah, just if there's any clarification on any of that, that would be great. Especially since, yeah, I was just really disheartened that my professors were saying things like, oh, use ChatGPT instead of your TAs, go, forcing hiring scabs for proctors, hiring people to mark assignments and stuff like that, when, obviously as a student I want to support PSAC as much as possible, so yeah.
If anyone could respond to that, if necessary.
Jack Walker, Engineering Society President. Right before council, or right before assembly, I was in a meeting with the Vice Dean Academic or Associate Dean Academic for Engineering, talking about these issues. So she confirmed that the sort of faculty-specific policy in Eng is that if any professor wants to switch to either a CR or a GD sort of standing for their course, they do need to pass that by her. And to date, she's only seen one request to potentially do that if they can't work something else out. So the vast, vast majority of courses in engineering, with one exception currently, are still going to continue to have letter grades. If you have a letter grade, there are a ton of different ways that can be achieved, and that is up to the professor to some extent. And if they're doing significant changes to the course structure, they also need to pass that by the Associate Dean Academic and the department head. In some cases, that might look like the prof is just going to grade all the assignments themselves. In some cases, that might mean having undergraduate markers, which is perfectly valid. And the undergraduate TAs are not unionized, right? So if you're an undergrad TA currently, you're not officially on strike. That's a separate discussion of whether or not you want to support the strike, but officially they're not unionized. So undergraduate TAs can continue to mark. It's possible for profs to just mark things themselves, and it's possible for them to restructure how they want to do stuff. So the specifics you'd have to talk to your profs about, but I can confirm that with one exception, letter grades are still being planned to be given out. The other half of that about sort of going up to your faculty level leadership and then getting kind of bounced back and forth between them and the university senior leadership. I have not had that problem. I've been able to get some pretty consistent sort of face-to-face time with this leadership about this. Talking to Dr. Kontopoulou today, she was very clear that if students have concerns that warrant her attention and they shoot her an email, she'll be happy to discuss with them or communicate. So, I mean, if you have specific concerns, I'd highly encourage you to reach out to Dr. Kontopoulou. She's the AD academic for engineering, and she's seemingly been very open to working with students. She's generally been pretty pro-student in our interactions with her.
I mean, if we're kind of more pertaining to the discussion item at this point, maybe after assembly. I'll be moving on to the next discussion point now. And this is regarding the undergraduate open letter. So to allow assembly to remain productive, each recommendation by the undergraduate open letter will be described separately, and at the conclusion of the discussion, assembly may choose to take a position on the recommendations proposed and direct the advocacy as deemed appropriate. The first point is that all completed assignments and exams be graded. Yes.
Thank you. Just to reiterate how we thought this was most effective, you've seen, and Emma said, we broke down into 4 points. It seems, I think we've had much debate, and it seems we're at a general consensus that Assembly can be in support of these motions. So I'm just hoping that I'm going to propose some rough language, and then if people would like to propose amendments to better reflect nuance or strategy surrounding this approach, please do. As always, if there's any major dissent from the opinion, please do pipe in, but it seems like generally as an assembly we're reaching a consensus, and I think in the interest of time, I'll start with some rough language. So what rough language to support this motion I would propose to look like would be along the lines of that AMS Assembly direct the executive to support the recommendation that all completed assignments and exams must be graded. Happy to see any amendments. Thank you.
Yes, President Spap.
Is it important for us to specify by whom? Because I think as students, we may all be in agreement that any work that we've submitted should be marked. But the question here, especially with the strike, is who are the people doing the marking? So maybe that should be made clear. I don't have a suggestion to amend it, but just posing a question to Assembly as well.
Thank you. I think from my perspective, I think we want to try and be, it's kind of a hard line to walk, because as much as I do want to be like specifically who, I feel like that's another reason for like what we're asking for not to be not taken seriously, but like for it to be harder to actually advocate on behalf of. Because if we were to specifically go in and say, oh, like we'd like for this to be marked by our professors, for instance, and then they could come back and be like, well, your professors don't have the capacity to do that. Or like if we were to say we'd like for this, like, so I think we have to be careful with like a balance between open-ended and too tight on our requests. But those are my thoughts right now. I think the other mic is right there. Could you pass it?
I just wanted to clarify my question. Just because, like, I know we've broken down the open letter into like different components, but overarchingly, like, what is the intention behind this sort of statement that we're putting out there? Obviously, like, there are a lot of concerns from undergraduate students and how they're being affected academically, but also especially through the petition that is being referenced to, there's a lot that has to do with advocacy for PSAC 901 as well. So I guess my question is, what approach are we taking this from? Because if we're looking at it from a undergraduate student perspective, yes, saying all completed assignments and exams should be graded makes a lot of sense. But if we're going at it from like, is AMS looking at it in terms of tangible actions, then who is marking it also does play a factor.
Rector Boychuk-Hill, I think that's a really important point because, and I'll speak through my lens of being a TA and TF, is, I mean, the moment this strike is over and there's a tentative agreement that is reached, like, I'm thrilled to go back into the classroom and finish out my contract, which they go to the end of April. I'm in the Faculty of Education, and in the Faculty of Ed, the most TAing and TF positions actually occur in the summer because there's 2 overlapping cohorts of education students. And so I think that's a really important question because either there might be a lot of grad students who are done their program or not in Kingston or have other jobs, or there might be the students in the Faculty of Education like me who actually have brand new classes that we're in charge of come May 1st, and I don't know who would grade it or how I would be able to do that. So I think it is really important that we're understanding like the request that we are going to make the university, and if we're putting more pressure on a graduate student when many of us are already overworked.
I think this one can like go a lot of different ways in the benefits it has for undergrads, but then also kind of the other effects that it goes to supporting grad students. Specifically 901, right? Like Nikki just had a good point about this whole contract, and so even if we say, hey, it's supposed to be done by grad students, but if everything's been pushed back so far and doesn't get, nobody can get to it until May, and they got to do other contracts and stuff like that. But also the important thing to recognize here is that when grad students can't do it, that means faculty basically have to do it, because there's been a couple talk about money for scabs and other workers and stuff, but overall we've been in a financial situation for a couple of years, and it'd be quite dumb for the university to hire scabs instead of just giving that to 901 to up their offer, right? But also, so I would assume that it would mostly fall on the faculty members to do that, which means then faculty members that are supposed to be focusing on their research in the summer, which is what senior leadership and deans and stuff are hoping is going to boost our rankings and boost our income, they can't be focusing on. They can't be writing grant applications and stuff, and it hurts the university in another way, right? And undergrads are gone in the summer. So unfortunately, if this does not come to an end here, which I really hope it does, and I think one of these other ones later we can help say, hey, this needs to be dealt with now and quick, right? If then there's like a plan, I don't know, EF, I don't know what everybody's on now, of, okay, if all the undergrads are gone, well, then we're putting pressure on to get the research done, which is kind of the main thing that's going on in the summer, right? So just food for thought on strategy here. I think it's pretty close to as is, and then if you specifically talk about ending the strike and the packages in another one, that aids in
executive's directive for specific action on that.
Yes, Vice President Asante.
I think it's very important that we. Okay, thank you. I think it's very important that we're specific on the AMS versus the AMS Assembly. Like I said earlier, the AMS has 3 votes on Assembly. Assembly tells us what to do, quite literally, when it comes to advocating. And so we want to be clear on how we're wording this, because if that's the direction of the AMS Assembly, that's different. Us as the AMS Executive, we cannot sway the votes of over 20 people with varying wants and needs. So I just think that that's really important to help us move forward, especially in terms of our advocacy, because if it's just the 3 of us as exec going to senior admin, that's one thing. But if we have the power of Assembly behind it, that's another push as well. So just very important to clarify before we continue any further conversations. And I would really like for that to be clearly distinct between.
I am gonna make sure that we cover everyone, so I'm gonna go to people who haven't spoken yet. Are you okay to speak first?
Sorry, hi again. I'm also an undergraduate TA, and so it is concerning that there is a chance that undergraduate TAs would be pressured or asked to scab. I think it is important that the language is clarified to say that, you know, I think it's dangerous if we're saying, you know, if we leave it open-ended like this, I guess. I think it's important that we clarify who is going to be marking this, and yeah, that's it. That hopefully you guys consider that.
Yeah. Yes.
If I may suggest, if there to be something to be amended, perhaps we can suggest that the original TAs are the ones to grade the assignments and exams. As previously mentioned by the individual before me, professors can use undergraduate TAs or perhaps even AI to grade assignments, which may be already happening. And so I think it's important to perhaps have this be an amendment in which it should be that the original TAs are the ones who are completing the assignments and the exams, unless they individually choose not to. I just think that may be a suggestion I would like to add.
Yes. Alan?
Kind of an open-ended question, but we're all undergraduates here. Do we know if the graduate students would want this, or if they would even have the bandwidth to do this? I don't know how their contracts work or what they're supposed to be doing over the summer, so... Okay, that's my only question.
Yes.
I've got a suggestion. Oh, President Savathson from ComSoc. I've got a suggestion potentially also for wording that might be more aligned with everyone in the room's interests, but because this is meant to be sort of like AMS Assembly urging the university to take particular actions. Obviously, like we're not, like we want to make sure that our urge has solid effect. Maybe something along the lines, my words aren't coming to me today, but the university resume bargaining efforts or pursue them with full attention and like full initiative and support. I'm not sure about the wording, but basically they come to the table and do what they're supposed to be doing. So TAs and TFs can resume marking for completed in exams in a timely manner, because at the end of the day, like faculty shouldn't be marking it, undergrad TAs shouldn't be marking it, and TAs and TFs that are currently on strike should not have to mark it after their contract is done. So ideally we want the strike to end sooner, so push for the strike to end. I'm taking the snaps and the thumbs up as slay, okay?
Can I just, sorry, I did kind of check out. I'm writing down everybody's recommendations because we're workshopping the motion, the position of assembly as we go. Can you repeat concisely?
My wording, if anyone is a better worker of the English language than me, please step in. But something along the lines of like, the university resumed bargaining in good faith. Great TAs over there. In good faith. So the original TAs and TFs can resume marking completed assignments and exams or grade them in a timely manner. I feel like that adds some strictness to the timeline. Open to suggestions, but yes. That has to do with the actual like specifics of how they're graded, but I mean, I think by saying marking all completed assignments and exams, like the implication there is like letter grades as well. That's what like the grading of the assignments would mean, is my assumption. But we could also make that more clear if folks would like, but yeah.
Yes.
Jack Walker and Shock Prez. It seems like the territory that we're heading into with this discussion point is the same as the fourth discussion point, which is explicitly about the university returning to the bargaining table. The point I want to make is that with the current one that's just saying sort of that we push for assignments to get graded, that's a little bit like pushing the university to spend less money. Like it's not an actionable request. And so if we're talking about getting things graded by getting the grad TAs working again because we've reached a deal, then I think that's covered by our last point. And if we're talking about getting stuff graded otherwise, it doesn't seem like people are particularly interested in that, which to each their own. But yeah, I think like we need to decide on specifically what we're calling for, because right now just saying be it resolved that we ask for stuff to be graded is not an actionable call or something that is really going to have any effect, I don't think. Yeah, like the current TAs are on strike, and seemingly we don't like the idea of undergrads or profs doing it. So with saying that, I would like to suggest that this first point not lead directly to a motion or a position, because it's kind of covered elsewhere.
Silas Tamlin, Vice President ASIS. He kind of took what I was going to say in that last sentence anyways, but I was just going to say let's just combine 1 and 4 and move on to the next one. Because I feel like if we do with the wording that Sahana suggested, we're able to kind of address both issues in one.
Okay, well, we don't currently have the motion like seconded, so I have the wording noted on my document, so we can go through discussion items, and then at the end we can revisit it if we need to go back to the original wording. But it's all been noted, and I guess we can move on to the next one.
As you can all read, so we'll open read this motion. We'll open up the floor. I think I saw Helena's hand up.
Okay. Hi, I'm Helena. I'm one of the ASIS VPs. It was great hearing everyone talk about their personal experiences, and I think it's safe to say with personal experiences, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. There's not a blanket or a Band-Aid, a term that was used to put over this. I think information on what CR and GD means is imperative for students. I think a lot of people are confused between the two. We've gotten some information from our associate dean, which we'll be sharing, not trying to sway anyone's opinion at all, but just with basic information on what each one is. And I encourage everyone to share that information with students so no one is confused. A couple things, and again, I don't think it should be either or. I think there should be that option. But I did want to point out with GD, per regulations, a student with a GD notation on their transcript is prohibited from graduation. I know a lot of people are saying that this might only be an issue for fourth years, but it also prevents students from being eligible for Dean's honor list, and students will be blocked from enrolling in courses. So this is just something I think we should consider before making any kind of decision or any kind of recommendations. Personally, I support BSAC. I love TAs. I love teaching fellows. I'm grateful for all the work that they do and everything that they've given me in my education. But this is just something that I would not feel comfortable going forward with without hearing out these concerns, as some of the people I represent have brought these concerns to my attention.
We'll move on.
Vice President Cowan, this was the line that made me vote no originally for endorsing the petition, because the AMS has to endorse the petition in whole on that original e-vote. Those results will come out later, but that was my reasoning why. Just as we're talking about the university's stance of using a CR as a blanket-wide response being bad, I would then turn around and argue that the response of then using a GD blanket across the board is also bad. Right, we're going to have the same issue here, and we've heard lots of talk and lots of testimonials of people who would actually prefer a grade deferred, and I think that's great. But if I could provide maybe the alternative approach that a lot of computing students have, a lot of us are entering industry, maybe engineers have a very similar approach, maybe commerce as well, but we are expected to have had our degree, and a lot of us have gone to internships, signed return offers. And when we return to those jobs, often starting in May, they want our degree to be finished, and they're going to expect proof of our degree. And so while I know that a grade defer is definitely preferred for maybe graduate studies and for a lot of other options, we do have to keep in mind that for some students, delaying getting their degree could actually pose a large issue. And I think that replacing one poor blanket response with another new blanket response is maybe actually not a solution, and maybe not actually what's best for students. As we've gone over again and again, a blanket solution doesn't work for students. And so I want to reiterate very strongly that I would never be in support of this. This is why I didn't sign the amendment originally. And I appreciate what undergrad students are trying to do here. Over 1,300 students have signed on, some people that I know personally, but this is not something that I can support. A blanket GD just doesn't work in my view.
To the first row. I saw your hand up first, and then we'll go to you. That's fine. I will need your student card if you would plan to speak. Is that one more?
Hello, I am François Edouard Dion. I'm a third year undergrad in the majoring physics, minoring history, and I'm also one of the undergraduate students that helped organize the rally at Richardson last week. I just want to preface this so that you can see my viewpoint here. So, from what I see, there's a lot of possible contention with the GD blanket versus CR blanket, which I would like to add a proposal, because in my opinion, I feel that most undergraduate students are in support of this point. So why not put it up to a referendum among undergraduate students and see if what the student body thinks of this point of the open letter, if it's possible.
I'll
I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that it's been nice hearing both sides for those who are in support of CR and those who are in support of GD. I didn't really know what either of them meant until 2 weeks ago, so it's been a learning process. But personally, I think the GD distinction holds the university accountable, and it also recognizes that it's not a student issue, it's an administration issue, and it recognizes that they weren't able to come to a conclusion in a timely manner for us to have our grades. And a CR, it might be more beneficial to those with professional degrees who aren't pursuing graduate studies. But for those of us who are, we can see how it kind of disproportionately affects those in the FAS.
And I think with GD, it's not that that's going to be your final grade forever. You have to graduate eventually at some point. They owe you a grade. But with CR, they're putting that onus onto the student. Hey, if you want to grade that badly, you have to chase us for it. But with GD, it kind of forces them, it puts pressure on the administration to respond. And also, if there's a whole cohort of students who aren't going to graduate on time, imagine the flack they're going to receive for that. So I think that their push for students to go for CR is just them trying to avoid accountability. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, it's on this side.
President Olitas asked us, so a GED does not expire and is not changed until a change of grade is submitted. A CR, you can still graduate and then change afterwards, but it is still on the student to follow up with that professor. Realistically, professors are not going to submit change of grades for 13,000 undergraduate students in arts and science. They simply don't have the time to do that. If people have CRs, they're able to then graduate. If they're going on to professional degree, they go and they don't get their grade changed. If you have a CR and then you appeal your grade, your instructor can mark it. If there's a GD, it's a lot harder for that grade change to happen, but it's also preventing people from being able to graduate. While it is a leverage tool, it's challenging because it's risking, as President Cowan had said, a lot of people who just need their degrees to get out. Where with a CR, it's going to get changed. You can submit your appeal if you really want that letter grade. But I also strongly believe that the motion should really be that we are pushing for letter grades or what is in the best interest of students, something like that in the wording, because I think, as we've demonstrated tonight, a lot of students have very different thoughts about what they should be receiving. A lot of profs have very different thoughts. From what we've heard, not many people in the Faculty of Arts and Science are for GDs. So it's really dependent on the student. And I think the wording for the advocacy should be that it's what a student prefers or what's in the best interest of the most students, not giving a blanket solution.
Just to kind of keep things moving, so would Assembly kind of be amiable to adding language that says it's up to the individual student upon advocating for that? Okay.
Do you want me to word it out?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know how to start. That AMS Assembly directs the AMS executive team to advocate that the university acts in the best interest of students with their grading, whether with preference being to a letter grade, however, then going down into letting the student decide
Between like a CR,
or a GD.
Yes.
I echo that sentiment. Also, just as a caveat, I'm aware that there are individual faculty members who have gotten permission from their deans, and this is in the Faculty of Arts and Science, to give their students that option between a CR or a GD. I can speak to it as I'm in one of those courses where my professor has basically said you can choose whether you would like to have a CR or a GD, and students can then act based on their own best wishes, and the prof would respect that. And so just making that option more accessible. At the end of the day, I think our responsibility as AMS Assembly, when it comes to these blanket solutions, is we are going to be harming students one way or another. And I think our goal here is to ensure that while we are so in support of the incredible work that our TAs and TFs do, we also want to make sure that students are not penalized to a point where they may lose out on job offers in such a harsh economy, where they may have to be penalized financially if they sign signing bonuses and they can't pay them back, and other situations due to situations beyond their control. So I think giving this potential measure where also faculty members may be empowered to make that decision, they may not have to be entirely reliant on their associate dean for that, might provide faculty members with more of that empowerment to act in their students' best interests.
Okay. Yes, Ruth.
I was going to say
No, not necessarily a better way to word it, but just a concern because the current recommendation doesn't say that students would have a choice. So I don't know if Assembly would be endorsing a recommendation that doesn't exist. Yeah, Assembly can't make that recommendation. I was just nitpicking the words. Okay, so in terms of language, what I currently have at the AMS, actually. So Assembly wants to make a recommendation. Let me just get this straight. That Assembly wants to make a recommendation that grades are determined in the best interest of students, with a preference being a letter grade, alternatively letting students pick between a CR and a GD. Yes? Awesome. Can we have a seconder? Josh? Will second that? Yeah? Okay. You want to put it to a vote? Yes. Sorry. Can you repeat that, but 10 p.m. Can you repeat that, but concisely, just so that I capture the essence of what you're saying? Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Can I just, okay. Sure. Why not?
I was just wondering, Sylvie, should I ask him if it's possible first, and then if we can put it in writing? Okay. To hope in the decision for students to choose between a CR and a GD, if there's a way to know for sure or confirm that the appeal process to have a CR switch to a grade would be confirmed or secured and not like probable, essentially. Like it's not, I don't know if that makes sense.
President Olitas asks, so the policy from the faculty office is any student who wishes to convert their CR or F to a grade based on the grading of outstanding work submitted may submit a request to their instructor. If an instructor deems that grading is possible and the instructor is able to assign an appropriate letter grade, a change of grade can be submitted. This is the faculty's policy, so it's AMS Assembly has no jurisdiction over it. However, what we can do as ASIS exec, we have a meeting with the faculty in 2 weeks, and we can advocate on behalf of students to have them strongly encourage their faculty members to be submitting these change of grades. We can't promise it, but we can advocate very harshly for it, or strongly. Harshly is not the right word.
Are there remaining questions in regards to the current?
My question is for President Elitis. Are you referring to the arts and science faculty policy? Okay, he's saying yes. I think that's an important consideration because we should probably figure out what all the other faculty policies are so we know what we're advising students. We don't want to tell them you can change this if that's actually not the case for a different faculty.
I mean, I think Amin has been, your hand's been up.
Yeah, we have a lot of viewers right now.
I said we had a lot.
Oh.
29 viewers.
Okay, I'm gonna speak to our 29 viewers. I apologize to the 29 viewers. I did not mean to demean you. In my eyes, you're all one. We're all one community. No. I just had a quick question. Like I don't know about anyone else, but I'm very confused about where this has gone. All I ask is for wording. Please, like, make it so that the students can actually find it somewhat digestible. I know you're on it. I just wanted to say it for the record. Like, I don't know, like we sit on Senate, bro. I don't know what happens in Senate either, respectfully. What? Bro?
Oh.
Bro, I'm here because I care. I'm here representing people, bro.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just to keep the conversation going.
No, all I ask is that regardless of where we decide to go, I don't really understand what this, like, I understand what you guys are all implying, but like if I were a random student, like a layperson, and I had no idea what was happening and I did not have the context, like I'd want to actually understand what that means. Like,
Okay. I do appreciate that. Just a couple notes. Like the wording of the motion needs to reflect what can go to the university in terms of whatever language the university will understand. I think we can have, when we release the motions on the AMS website, have an explanation of what that means if there is any concern about students being able to understand them. But Jack, I think.
Oh.
Jack Walker, Engineering Society President. This might be a bit of a hot take, but given that I can't see any world in which students having the choice between CR and GD is worse than being forced to have one option, I would actually make the argument that it doesn't matter what the faculty policies are. And with that in regard to this motion, and with that in mind, I'd like to formally motion that AMS Assembly make the recommendation to the university that students be given letter grades preferentially, and if that's not possible, be given the choice between CR and GD. Do I have a seconder?
Oh, this is crazy. Okay, put your pockets down. Who would like to second this motion? I saw Helena's first. Okay, is there any further questions or comments regarding the motion that was currently just put forward? If there is none, okay, we're gonna put it to vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, we are gonna move on to the next one. That partial tuition refunds be. Oh,
Sorry. Jack, do you think you can send me the language? Thank you.
okay. That partial tuition refunds be issued for the education we have paid for but not received. Who would like to speak on this first? Ruth.
I feel like my comment is on the side. I know some people are worried about like the specific wording and making certain things clear. I think that from my understanding, the assembly could also put together a letter that goes forward to admin. So if you're worried about the fluff or the extra things that we add on to this, these are our main advocacy points, and we can build a proper letter together as an official stance for the AMS Assembly. So do not be worried. And if you have those concerns, please reach out to Sylvia and Emma. And when we start to put the letter together and when we submit it to the speaker so it's officially passed, they can also add that in. Sylvie, I have the policy right? That's how it works? Girl, the letters that the AMS Assembly stance. Okay, whatever. We'll go with whatever way. Okay, and then the thing I was gonna add here is I feel like this is very, very thoughtful, but our university is in a major budget deficit, and we already talked about, it's true, it's not a lie, we know that, and we already talked about the fact that we do not, right now our funding from the provincial government is also not adequate. So this is one of those stances where I feel like it was very important for us to be specific about what we were asking for and about the success of our asks and our advocacy points as well. This was one of those ones that I do not think would be even considered by the university. And when that was on the letter or this was on the petition, I felt like this was something that would completely derail the arguments that we have here, which are that our students are able to receive their grade deferred or their CR standing depending on what works best for them. And that was one of the reasons why I also voted no towards the petition, because again, I agreed with some of the points and not all of them. But that's the first thing. Nikki. Guys, this is actually terrible, by the way. Yes.
I actually think this is one of the strongest points that we can support as an assembly based on my experience on the board and my understanding of our financial situation, as VP Osinde explained. Like, the university is not in a position to be losing tuition dollars, and so this is a really tangible way for assembly to put pressure to have a tentative agreement reached sooner, because they're not going to want to be in a position where they have to refund tuition. And if enough students, like, the open letter was signed by a lot of undergraduate students, I think 2000 was the last I saw. So I actually think that we really should focus strongly on this point, not because we think the university's actually going to follow through with it, but I think it's a really good position for us to take, to put that pressure on, because it's also, like, completely valid. Like, tutorials have been canceled for weeks. Those are hours that the university didn't pay TAs to teach, and students who registered for courses are not getting their tuition dollars. Even if they're getting some sort of credit on their transcript, I think we also can be thinking about, like, the education that students didn't receive. And there's a lot of students who are here to actually, like, learn substance in their tutorials. So I would highly recommend that Assembly go forward with something, maybe not necessarily this language. I think we could get a little bit more specific to talk about, like, every week of a canceled tutorial. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. If I had a vote, I would vote for it.
Can I? Yeah. Yeah, like, I really appreciate the earlier statements made tonight about why a lot of people signed this one, because quite honestly, I skimmed the letter quick when I first heard about it and didn't realize that this specific point was in there until we were talking about it the other day. But yeah, I think the education we have paid for but not received is a little weird. And like how do you calculate that with all these different courses and different scenarios? So I think there was a good point about there's some concerns about credit or whatever happens not getting accepted by another institution. So maybe we frame it as if a course is not able to be completed, that a student be able to retake that course for free in the next academic year. Just a thought. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know who's been. Oh yes, Silas. You had. Oh, okay, never mind. I think behind have had your hands up for longer.
Hi. First of all, how do you guys do this? Right. So a couple things. I mean, first of all, sorry, I don't know everybody's name, but I think you mentioned that, you know, you didn't support, I mean, obviously, it's fine. You didn't support the letter because you were saying, like, the focus of the letter should be about the CRGD, but I think we're getting away from the fact that this letter is in support of PSAC, first of all. Second of all, I agree with this. I agree with you. Sorry, I don't know everybody's names. I don't know what a rector. I don't even know what a rector is, but yeah, I completely agree. Like, this is the only thing I think that is in the letter that is putting direct financial pressure on Queens. I think there's no way that they're going to listen to this letter unless there is some form of pressure. And I think this is kind of it. I mean, I also think, like, there's no way if this is put into the letter and they, you know, shoot it down immediately, I'm sure every student is going to be angry that they, you know, they're not being refunded this tuition money that obviously, you know, obviously our education has been harmed by not having grad TAs. And, like, I can say it directly as an, like, engineering student, like, this, it's been a hectic and crazy time. So, yeah, I'm in support of this.
Okay, well, as we wait, I think she's grabbing the mic.
Senator Nikki Hassan. I want to speak on how niche the language of this request should be. Personally, I have a fourth year seminar taught by a professor, which has been canceled since the PSAC strike has been taking place. So this professor has chosen to cancel all classes and all assignments in support of PSAC and the striking workers. So I want to ask, should this this stance that AMS Assembly is taking, should it include classes that have been canceled in solidarity? Although that was discretion of the professor, I think it merits a discussion. Maybe I can recommend that we can change the wording to this to issue a refund, like a percentage based on since the strike has begun. Still, that does not answer the question of whether classes that have been canceled in solidarity should also be receiving a refund, or if we would request that they receive a refund.
This is more just of a point I wanted to bring up. I just think I guess it's sad to think that partition tuition refunds is beyond a reality for this university, and especially considering the fact that, senior administrators like to reward themselves with pay increases, 4.4% in 2023 and 8.5% in 2022, and we're talking about individuals who are making six-figure salaries, so these numbers mean a lot. And of course, when there's financial mismanagement, there's financial struggles, the university decides not go after the senior administrators, but after the people who are the most vulnerable, our graduate students, and of course also then affecting our undergraduate students. And so that's pretty much the entire point I just want to make. It's just due to financial mismanagement, of course, who are the people who are suffering most, the most vulnerable? Who are the people who are suffering the less? The senior administrators. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate everybody voicing these concerns. I know I respect VP Sunday's concern of this not being something we can guarantee on delivering, but I don't know if that should stop the assembly from advocating for it. Although how tangible it be, I think it's something on principle we can all agree on. And I also I echo Nikki's concern. Sorry, I would try to use your formal title, but that I understand that some classes were canceled for different reasons, but I do think the existing language encompasses all cases. And for that reason, I'm just going to create the motion that the AMS Assembly endorse the recommendation that partial tuition refunds be issued for the education we have paid for but not received.
Sorry, keep your placards up. We're just recounting.
Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll now move back to this one in the first. Would anyone like to start us off? Yes.
Great line. I think that's why we're all here today. Could we potentially, like in the letter, move this to the first line. That's like the highlight in bold, yellow highlight, like whatever we have to do. And I would love to move this motion to a vote.
What's
The exact language. I mean, I think this one, any thumbs up or indicators from our PSAC members here? Are you happy with the language? Great indication. Not that it, yes.
Sorry, I was just going to add that 901's fighting for livable wages and housing and all that. So do we want to add on more to what they're fighting for?
My opinion is I think this is short and punchy. It kind of encompasses exactly what's going for. And I also think PSAC has done an excellent job of articulating their needs on various different platforms. And I think the university is very well aware of what they're asking for. But yeah, I don't know. I guess then the question is this letter for the university administration or is this letter for our students? If anyone wants to answer that.
First of all, I'd like to just amend the motion such that it starts with that AMS assembly endorse just the same way the last one started, just so we're all on the same page that this is something we're endorsing as an assembly. That's all of our responsibility to uphold. And secondly, I wouldn't worry about how we're putting these things in a letter. I mean, we're minuting a lot of these issues, and I think we're happy to motion at the end of this discussion period to direct the executive to write all this in a letter to the or something of that sort. So with that being said, I want to amend the motion.
Maybe then to call. Hello? Okay. Maybe to caveat this, adding Owen's like starting portion to that motion, maybe even potentially after this line, outlining like PSAC 901's offer can be, or like their position can be accessed at and include a link to their website, just so it's very clear as to what we are endorsing. And that way for folks who may come across this letter, they would know what we would be referring to.
Can I just ask a question? I know for the first recommendation, Assembly didn't take a position because they felt like it relates to the last one. Does Assembly want to combine the two in the motion?
I know I said the first one. Do you mind repeating what I said earlier?
From what I understand is you motion to have that Assembly recommend the last one, which is that the Queen's University return to the bargaining table. I'm wondering if you wanted to also include that all assignments should be graded and some of the language that had come up in the first discussion.
My thought is, Assembly members feel free to pipe in, potentially even breaking that down into 2 sentences. So one, keeping that last like point 4 in this letter, with the AMS Assembly endorses this, like keeping that as a first sentence, maybe in brackets, like referring them to the length of PSAC 901's exact asks. And then maybe as a subsequent sentence saying, consequently, or as a result, or in addition, AMS Assembly also, do you mind going back to that first slide? AMS Assembly also strongly urged that through there's something about good faith in there or something. Can you repeat the sentence?
Yeah. Just before we get into it, I have 2 comments. First one is if we're going to include a link, I think ideally we should all agree on what that link is because that would be what Assembly is endorsing.
Good point.
And then the second point is if you want to break it down into 2, I'd almost suggest having it as 2 separate motions. Like if everybody on this assembly agrees that the last point in the recommendation is good as it stands, then I think we can put that for a vote and then come back to the first one to figure out language.
I guess like I have a question, and this might be for, I don't know if I can direct it towards PSAC.
But they can't answer.
They can't answer. That's fair. Can they make a statement? If I were to make a statement, could they raise their hands and also make a statement?
A statement about what?
I was just going to be like, I'm so curious as to where one can find PSAC 901's exact. The only reason why I ask is because if you could go back to that first point, Or not the first point, sorry, the fourth point in the letter. It's all very confusing. The one after this. I just think.
No, I'm just being accurate.
No, that's fair. Because this is something that I've heard from faculty deans and members of the university administration. The word fair is a very subjective term that they've been really harping on. So I think to the point that Owen mentioned earlier of given fair is so subjective. And if we are truly taking a stance on PSAC 901's efforts here, I think specificity might help, but I also don't think outlining that in a whole paragraph as to what exactly it is that they're asking for point blank is going to be very effective.
So just to kind of add into that, I'm not opposed to it, but I just want the motion to be accurate and for members of assembly to understand what they're voting on. If we're including a link in the motion, that means whatever content is on that page is endorsed as is. So it might be something for assembly to consider if they've reviewed everything on that page before they make that. Again, I'm not trying to be difficult. I think we can link that in the announcement, but I just want members of assembly to be aware of the implications of endorsing a link when it doesn't seem like it's been fully reviewed by this assembly.
Can I have a proposition for maybe adjusting the wording of this then? Maybe something along the lines adding in the component of negotiating in good faith to that line. So we don't have to put in a link because I think that, like I said, the university is well aware of what's being asked for, but add something in here where it's negotiating in good faith with PSAC, and I think that caveats the whole what is fair. Fair and dignified. Do we like that wording?
Okay, so hold on. So the Queen's return to the bargaining table to negotiate in good faith.
So Queen's return to the bargaining table immediately to negotiate in good faith a fair and dignified offer that respects the work of PSAC 901 members.
Can you repeat that?
Oh God. So the AMS Assembly endorse the AMS executive advocate. The AMS. Okay. Wait. Hold on. The AMS Assembly endorse that the AMS Assembly advocate for Queens to return. Am I going too fast, anyone?
Should we just say that the AMS Assembly calls for Queens to
Calls for. Great. Is anyone typing this down? Because I don't know if I could do it. Okay, but do you want to just go, Owen? Yeah.
Sorry, I think we agree in principle. That AMS Assembly recommend that all completed assignments and exams be graded, and that Queens return to the bargaining table immediately to negotiate in good faith a fair and dignified offer that respects and recognizes the work of PSAC 901 members.
Yeah, I would swap that around. And if anything, I think it should still be two separate sentences. But you can keep it in the same section. I just think this is the start of the letter. I feel like this is the ultimately what is being asked for. But I guess what I was going to say, I like the recommend word, that the AMS Assembly, I would even put in strongly recommend that Queens return to the bargaining table immediately to negotiate in good faith a fair and dignified offer that respects the work of PSAC 901 members. And then we can first vote on that, and then if we want to do a subsequent line about the assignments and grades. I don't know, my personal opinion on this is I think while they are interconnected, I think this emphasis is about actually coming to the table and negotiating and ending the strike, whereas the next piece is about undergraduate students' assignments and marks.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I would almost suggest, again, keeping those two separate. So maybe we take out that language about the first recommendation and just focus on the bargaining in this one. The language looked, what I have right now is that the AMS Assembly strongly recommend that Queens return to the bargaining table immediately to negotiate in good faith a fair and dignified offer that respects and recognizes the work of PSAC 901 members. Does that sound good to everyone, or do you want to amend it to say like calls for? Yeah, Nikki?
Sure. Let's change recommends to urges. Yeah, can we put this to a motion to a vote? I'll motion it. Anyone want a second?
Should we say one?
Sorry, that's the deputy speaker's job, my bad.
Oh. Okay, wait. Okay. Mover by President from Comstock, and then, wait, can you, okay, Jana can second it. We'll read it one more time. Hold on. That AMS Assembly strongly urges that Queens return to the bargaining table immediately to negotiate in good faith at a fair and dignified offer that respects and recognizes the work of PSAC 901 members. If there's no further questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Should we return to the first one?
Yeah.
Last one. Yeah.
First one, do you mind repeating what we had agreed upon earlier on in the conversation? It's been a long evening.
I don't disagree. Let me look at my notes. So I had a couple notes linking the first one to the last one. The first one was to support the recommendation that all completed assignments and exams be graded by the original TAs. I also have a note that they should resume bargaining, or the original TAs can resume completing the completing the graded assignments in a timely manner. So the key differences from what you're seeing on there is the addition of the word original TAs and in a timely manner.
I have like a potential suggestion, since this line would come after that first statement that we said, something along the lines of the AMS Assembly urges the university or Queens to take the necessary steps to ensure that all completed assignments and exams be graded by the original TAs or whoever in a timely manner. So we're not like repeating what was said earlier on, but it also puts pressure on the university to like take all necessary steps. So it's like something a little different, but same
Yeah,
essence.
I have that noted. Josh.
AMS Assembly urges Queens graded in a timely manner following a successful agreement.
Can you read that again?
AMS Assembly urges Queens to ensure all completed assignments and exams are graded in a timely manner following a successful agreement. Probably needs one or two more words, I'll be honest.
Could we add something about the original TAs or TS? I'm not even sure if that's all encompassing everyone who might be impacted, but like the original people who were supposed to mark it. I think that should be in there because technically faculty could still mark it after the agreement according to that line.
What if we add by original markers?
Yeah, that works.
AMS Assembly
Josh, can you read it but slowly?
AMS Assembly urges Queens to ensure all completed assignments and exams are graded in a timely manner by the original markers following a successful agreement. I don't know.
Following. Is there any other proposed language for this?
I'm going to read it again, and then we can ask for a mover and a seconder. So the language that I have right now is that AMS Assembly urges Queens to ensure that all completed assignments and exams are graded in a timely manner by original markers following a successful agreement. Yeah? Okay, Josh is going to move it.
A seconder? Seconded? Well, just verify. Perfect. Okay, is there any questions regarding the motion as stated? Okay. We'll now put this motion to a vote. All those in favor?
Can you raise your placards high if you're in support? Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18.
Okay, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. That was the last thing on the discussion.
I do have a note to make before we adjourn this meeting. Okay, so I'll check the stream so that we release the motions that Assembly endorsed tonight on the website so that they're available for everyone. The second note is that the General Assembly is coming up next Monday, so that's the assembly where everyone can vote. It will be taking place at Bioscience 1102, I think. But the reminder that I wanted to put forward is that if you have any items to submit to that agenda, they are due tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. So please make sure you submit them.
I'd now like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Owen Rocky, seconded by... Wait, can you put your placards down again? Okay, seconded by... I think I saw Cole's first. So AMS Assembly adjourns at 10:34. Oh, yes, I have to... Yes, okay. All those in favor of adjourning AMS Assembly, please raise your placard. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion